across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Helen Mirren, national treasure, out for a walk with a friend, and what happens? She gets horrible anti-Zionist abuse. We'll look at that. She's not the only celebrity who's dealt with this, and of course there are many people who aren't celebrities who deal with it every single day. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how we were essentially lied to by the withholding of information over Peter Mandelson, the cabinet ministers who were told by Parliament after a Democratic vote, give us your messages with Peter Mandelson. Guess what? They didn't. They had to go back to the Cabinet Office and say, give us those messages. This is what Parliament has decreed, yet still they did not, and they had to be asked again. We'll talk about mitigating the Mandelson risk. We'll talk about the Israel-Lebanon latest. We'll talk about Peter Murrell and Nicola Sturgeon. There have been calls for a public inquiry in Scotland. Will they be looking into what went wrong and how it was allowed to happen? No, of course not, because John Swinney, the First Minister of Scotland, doesn't want that to happen. It's an absolute scandal. We'll talk about the British Museum postponing a Jewish event due to protest fears. Jella Braverman has plenty to say about that. The Sikh thug sentenced for a ceremonial knife murder of a teenage victim who police treated as a racist while he lay dying. I know Kevin's been talking about that. We'll talk about that too. And of course the 1 million people, 18 to 25-year-olds, not in education, employment or training. It is a scandal. And Birmingham City Council finding itself £472,000 for its own clean air breaches. Yes, really, so much to talk about this evening. Let me know your thoughts on all of it. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a WhatsApp, send me a voice note, or give me a ring, all on the main number, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, I was absolutely appalled earlier today when I saw this clip. We've bleeped out the bad language, and there is quite a lot of bad language. This was Helen Mirren walking with a friend who's the director of An Officer and a Gentleman. She was out for an evening, and someone started filming her and shouting anti-Zionist abuse at the actress, who has stood up for Israel on many occasions. She's an Oscar winner. She's played the Queen. She's played Golda Meir, the only female Prime Minister of Israel, and she happens to believe that Israel has a right to exist and that we should stand up for the Israeli people. And this was how she was treated by a horrible pro-Palestinian who did this to her.
And there's Helen Mirren, the avowed Zionist. She said Israel should last forever because of the Holocaust. And she was very happy the Palestinian houses. You put the post up, you evil old bag. You're an evil Zionist, and you as well, you and all.
Lovely. We have seen previously that Matt Lucas has had this similar treatment meted out to him, asking him what he thought about things going on in the Middle East, when Matt Lucas, to my knowledge, has never, ever actually stated publicly what he thinks about what happens in the Middle East. He is Jewish, and he is someone who has said that he wanted the hostages to be released. Not exactly the most radical statement after their horrendous treatment by Hamas terrorists. Yet here we are, Helen Mirren out for an evening. She turns around, she smiles to the person when someone says there's Helen Mirren, clearly recognising her, thinking something nice might happen, but actually she gets shouted at and called a Zionist B word. Well, let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott about this and many other stories. Isabel is our international editor and joins me now. Isabel, this just keeps happening and people are doing it and they know they can get away with it.
Well, I would like to think that after Keir Starmer's recent intervention, in which he promised that, you know, the government was going to take all of this stuff extra seriously, people would feel that they couldn't get away with it. But I don't think, as you and I discussed at the time, Keir Starmer's intervention was ever going to be any more than far too little too late. And we now have a sense that there is a kind of permissive attitude to absolutely brutal, raw, unashamed anti-Semitism. It's all over the country, but particularly in London and our other major cities. And it shames us all, really, as a culture.
You're absolutely right. She was with Taylor Hackford, her 81-year-old husband. She's 80 herself. I mean, these are senior citizens who've done an awful lot for Hollywood. They've done an awful lot for the film industry in this country as well. She's a national treasure, very, very well known, and she gets this kind of horrendous treatment simply for standing up for Israel, Isabel.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately as well, in her industry, it is a particularly unpopular position to be remotely standing up for Israel. You know, it's a very lefty-lovey industry, and it must have been, and it must continue to be, particularly difficult for those in the theatre world, in acting, and in so many other parts of our arts culture. To be on that side of what shouldn't even be a debate. I don't even know why I'm calling it a debate. I mean, it isn't a debate, is it? You know, it's just about treating people decently and with respect and so on. But yeah, it's a horrible snapshot of what many far less famous Jews in the UK are experiencing.
Well, I've had a version of it myself when someone remonstrated with me outside a tube station about an interview I'd done when I challenged someone who wanted to de-prescribe Hamas. It was a very unpleasant experience. Isabel, let's move to the politics of the day. This horrendous story about ministers trying to hide Mandelson messages. They were told by a Democratic vote in Parliament that they had to hand over their messages to the Cabinet Office. They had to be published unless they were matters of national security, but many ministers, simply because of the embarrassment factor, had not given their messages over and had to be asked again. Absolutely outrageous.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all. You know, as one that obtained and released hundreds of thousands of words of WhatsApp messages between ministers and other key government figures during lockdown, I know how hard and how hard they would have tried to stop that happening. Had they known that those messages would be released. And this sort of correspondence is really important in shedding a light on what really goes on in government. And now, of course, I think that ministers should be able to have private conversations on certain things that are not ever going to be shown to the public. But this doesn't meet that test. And you know, the reality is that an awful lot of people in this ongoing Mandelson saga are very embarrassed by their role in it and desperately trying to hide.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about the continuing ridiculous saga of Nicola Sturgeon and her ex-husband, Peter Murrell. I mean, some of the revelations today, which include items that, as part of his plea deal, were not made public that he had bought with this money that was meant to go towards Scottish independence referendum campaign. Women's razors, knickers, makeup, fitness gear, they were deleted from the rap sheet as part of his plea deal with prosecutors, but of course we know about them now. £2,700 listed on vanity products, including an 886 worth of foundation and a motion sensor makeup mirrors. Motion sensor makeup mirrors. That sounds vaguely sinister.
I've never even heard of those.
I didn't know that was a thing. We need to get them. They're only £480 apparently. So
right.
maybe I could buy you that as a wedding present as well. I don't know.
Thanks.
There's a £300 Dyson hairdryer. Very interesting that a bald man should have bought that. And 9 makeup organisers at £116. Nike tracksuits totaling £175, plus a £3,775 camera and £466 of accessories. My favourite bit, though, is the third best book written about politics in the last 5 years, which is, of course, Isabel Hardman's Why We Get the Wrong Politicians. There was a copy of Why We Get the Wrong Politicians that Peter Murrell. But I mean, you could not make that up.
That is too good. This is absolutely intriguing, isn't it? Because Nicola Sturgeon today she was at a book festival and she was saying this has been like the worst week of her life. I was thinking, what, since the last one? I mean, she's had an awful lot of truly terrible weeks in the last few years. And she was just adamant that she didn't know about any of this stuff. I'm really confused as to who the makeup was for. I mean, like, one thing of foundation, yeah, I get that for maybe for men that are on TV. I mean, most men, if they're on TV a lot, they maybe have to wear some powder or whatever. But what about all the, like, it sounds like a lot of cosmetics. Was that all for Peter Murrell? What the hell?
I'm clearly missing the motion sensor makeup mirror. I'm gonna have a chat with our boss to see if we can get one of those. I mean, this scandal just goes on, and then we have John Swinney getting very tetchy, the First Minister of Scotland. There's been a number of times over the past few days he's got very tetchy. He's done a sort of boyfriend apology where he says, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry if that helps," kind of thing, and then he's been asked for a public inquiry, and he says, "No, one's not needed."
Yeah, I mean, he sort of did he had a go, didn't he, at doing a sort of how awful, I feel very betrayed statement today. And he was sort of trying to say, well, I can't say too much because there's still aspects of this case that I might prejudice. I don't know. Probably. I mean, it's the whole thing is absolutely extraordinary.
The one thing broadcasters and journalists need to stop saying is that Nicola Sturgeon has been cleared. She has not been cleared. They decided not to charge her. That is not the same as being cleared. Similarly, Angela Rayner was not cleared by HMRC. That is incorrect. She was told to pay back £40,000, which she did, and then they said the matter was over. The language around this matters so much, especially when it comes to what Nicola Sturgeon knew and didn't know, Isabel.
Yes, I mean, I'm still unconvinced. I mean, she talked at length about how little she goes into the kitchen, or she was going into the kitchen during her marriage. She was very busy. I understand that. You know, maybe she was either not eating, or it was takeaways, or she was having dinner at work or whatever, breakfast on the hoof. I get that, but the scale of this was just so extraordinary. I mean, it was just off the charts, wasn't it? You know, the scale of the purchases.
It's also the number of very expensive coffee machines, for example. There's sort of 3,000 of them, and we saw that house, and a lot of my shock around it, maybe not shock, but just what was notable was how ordinary the house is. It's a very nice house. I'm not being sniffy or horrible about it.
Yeah, but it's suburban.
It's a suburban, nice house that I'm sure a lot of people will be very proud to live in. But it's not exactly extensive. It's not a rolling manor. It's not as if you could say, oh, well, there are rooms that I rarely went into. I mean, everybody goes into the kitchen.
Well, completely. I mean, indeed, it could have been. It's a nice, modest house. Not the kind of house where you'd expect to find how much was the pepper pot again?
It was about £2,500 for the pepper pots. I mean,
I actually think this sounds to me like, you know, there is a sort of condition of compulsive shoplifting, that kind of thing. I wonder if there's actually some kind of serious psychological disorder going on here. Well, you know, to be spending this kind of money on this level of trivia when you don't have the money and you don't need the trivia. It's just something's very, very wrong there mentally, isn't it?
There was a rather unkind but nonetheless very funny tweet the other day about Richard Madeley, who's promoting a series called It's Like Richard Madeley on Death Row, and someone said, you know, it was only a couple of bottles of wine.
What? Sorry?
About Richard Madeley, who had shoplifted a couple of bottles of wine, but
yes,
he said there was a psychological element to it. But yes,
exactly. Yeah, you're really delving back into history with that
yes,
one. How long ago was that? I hadn't forgotten.
Probably quite a while. But it is fascinating as to why he bought all these things and why you need to kind of why anyone. I mean, if I had £2,500, I can't think of any universe where I would say, yep, I'm going to spend that on some ornate pepper pots. It just wouldn't enter my head to do so. It is fascinating, and it's the kind of, like the house, I suppose. It's the sort of weirdness in the ordinariness of this scandal. It's a very strange scandal, isn't it?
It's a really strange scandal, and I think the reason it's as a story, it just has everything, doesn't it? It has what was the nature of the marriage that involved him being able to buy all of this stuff and her allegedly not noticing. The psychology of someone who embezzles on that scale and uses it to buy such strange things. Then there's the political dimension of, you know, ordinary people who've given their donations to the SNP and only to find it's been spent on a motion sensor makeup mirror.
You really want that motion sensor makeup mirror?
I'm just trying to picture it. I can't picture it. You know, my teenage girls are well into all this stuff, and even they've not obtained or asked for a motion.
I mean, do you move and it moves with you? I mean, is it? Do you put on certain types of makeup and it kind of highlights them, or their lights or something? I want to know what this is. I just have a sort of morbid curiosity as to what a motion sensor makeup mirror worth £480 is. I mean, I think we need to find out. Isabel, on that surreal note, thank you very much for your analysis of all of that. This is Isabel Oakeshott, our international editor. Amanda's been in touch and says, good evening, Peter. Every day without fail, the news brings yet more horrors of sickening events in our country. I hardly dare hope we may have reached a turning point with Blair condemning Starmer. That fallout continues, certainly, Amanda. We know that Andy Burnham is hit back as well. Leslie says, what a tragic story of Henry Nowak, seeing as Starmer and Rayner knelt together to support a serial criminal, George Floyd. Where are they for Henry? And Becca says, we need to change the law that Sikhs are allowed to carry blades as part of their religious rites. This is ridiculous in 2026 Britain, says Becca. And that is the story of Henry Nowak. We'll be returning to that a little bit later on in the programme, actually. He was stabbed by someone with a Sikh ceremonial sword. He made clear to officers that he had been stabbed, and they appear not to have done all they could, although the police were very keen to point out that actually it was obviously the murderer who was responsible, Vikram Digwa, who used an 8-inch blade he said he carried as part of a Sikh faith to kill the 18-year-old Henry Nowak, who was walking home from a night out in Southampton in December. Lots more to discuss. We'll go to the debate desk next, as we do at this time every evening. Jo Wheeler is here and she can tell us about what the weather is going to do, as well as her views on lots of other topics too. And we'll hear from the political commentator Kai Wilshaw, and you as well. I want to make sure you get your voice on the air right throughout the evening between now and 10 o'clock. Please do give me a ring anytime on any topic, whatever is on the tip of your tongue, whatever you want to say, whether you want to talk about Nicola Sturgeon, the Mandelson lies we were told, or maybe it's about Helen Mirren, that dreadful clip, that dreadful thing that this person just filmed and put on social media and showed, and proudly showed off to people, that he had slagged off and verbally abused a national treasure. What do you think about that? An 80-year-old and an 81-year-old out for the evening, two people who've contributed a heck of a lot to the arts in this country, and who were shouted at and profanities used against them. Absolutely dreadful. Stay with us here on Talk and get your call in. Use the break, pick up the phone, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots to discuss on the debate desk in a second, but Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary in America, the one with the unconvincing teeth, he is talking at the moment. We think it's about Iran. Let's dip into what he's talking about. Oh, no, we can't actually hear it just yet, but he is there, and as soon as we can hear it, we will certainly dip into it and see what he is talking about. Penny in Essex says on Nicola Sturgeon, she married Peter Murrell, we reckon, to further her career, and her chickens have come home to roost like this. Like Andrew, these people think they won't ever be found out. That is wrong. And another person, Margaret in Birmingham, says the hairdryers, makeup, sorry Nicola, we just don't buy this. If not for you, where is all this stuff? Yeah, what was that? Why did he need, what was that again? It was a motion activated makeup mirror. I don't even know what that is. Also a hairdryer for a bald man. All this makeup and all these cameras, very weird. And Margaret says, I think Nicola should have her eyes tested. Margaret, I am fairly sure you're one of the very kind people who sent me a birthday card, and I really appreciate that. A number of people have done that. Carolyn actually sent me these lovely presents. One is Bookshop Cats by Daphne de Miaouye. Another is a notepad. There are a couple of other presents as well. I just want to say thank you to everybody. There's absolutely never any need to send me cards or messages or anything like that to say happy birthday, but I really appreciate to everyone who has. My birthday is on Monday. I'm actually off next week because I'm going on holiday, but I will see you the week after that, and don't worry, I'm here tomorrow night as well. Thank you to everybody who has contributed. We'll get some calls in a second. We'll keep an eye on what Scott Bessent is saying, but I want to talk now on the debate desk with Joe Wheeler, broadcaster and meteorologist. You've been busy this week, Joe. How are you doing?
I have been very busy, and
great.
It's been very warm as well.
Well, you're a ray of sunshine. And Kai Wilshaw, political commentator, lovely to see you back. How are you doing?
Very good.
Good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Helen Mirren and what happened to her. National treasure, out for an evening with her husband, and this is what happened.
And there's Helen Mirren, the avowed Zionist. She said Israel should last forever because of the Holocaust. And she was very happy the Palestinian houses. You put the post up, you evil old bag. You're an evil Zionist, and you as well. You and all.
So Taylor Hackford, who's 81, her husband was with her. He shot back and told the man to F off. But they were being called an evil Zionist B word was what happened to Helen Mirren when she was simply out for a walk. We've seen this before. We saw this with Matt Lucas, who was verbally abused for his thoughts on the Middle East, despite the fact that he's never made his views public. He is Jewish, but that's it. You know, what do you think of the Palestinian kids? Well, I'm on a tube, mate. You know, leave me alone, basically. You just think you can film me doing this. I think that man later lost his job, and I will shed no tears for that. The person who's done this as well, he's put it on social media with impunity, and this is the world we live in, Joe. This is what happens now.
It's absolutely dreadful. I mean, it comes back to that thorny old issue of freedom of speech, for a start. I mean, whatever her beliefs, she has a right to them. She has the right to speak about them. And if somebody doesn't like them, well, that's fine. You be quiet. Yeah, she can say what she wants, but I mean, she wasn't even being outspoken at the time. And I think more importantly as well, I know her age shouldn't have much to do with it, but you know, she is 80-odd years old, and you simply shouldn't treat your elders like that. I mean, where has the respect gone in this country?
I think everybody is entitled to a bit of respect when you're 80 years old. You're entitled to respect at any age, but this is an elderly person with her elderly husband out walking in the evening. She actually kind of smiles at the start because she thinks, oh, this is someone being nice or saying something,
she greets
something
him.
nice. Yeah,
she greets him.
Yeah. Kai?
What's additionally shocking about this as well, and you see this a lot with some of these protests, is they go for the completely wrong targets in doing this. Not that there are any legitimate targets of aggressive protest, but Helen Mirren is on record saying that Benjamin Netanyahu's government is has a male style of leadership, that she was glad to see demonstrations against him. So to have a nuanced perspective on the conflict these days is
there is no nuance.
It's
there is
completely
no nuance.
pacifying.
I mean, when you're calling someone an evil Zionist B word, I mean, Zionism means that you believe Israel should exist. You know, no one's saying does France have a right to exist. No one's saying does Mexico have a right to exist. This is just pure hatred and directed towards someone who's out for an evening's walk who happens to have some political opinions, Kai.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would be really worried about as the police forces, as the government, is, you can take as many measures as you want for mass protests and for the kinds of protests that we see organised in London, for instance, most weekends. But how do you stop something like this happening? This is a cultural issue. Where people feel
it is a cultural issue,
don't they?
And speaking of culture, actually, the British Museum postponing a lecture. We talked a little bit about this last night. Postponing a lecture for Jewish Culture Month because of concerns the event would be disrupted by protesters. Now, George Osborne, among his 27,000 other jobs, is the chairman of the British Museum, and he said, worth reading this statement before speculating. Well, the statement from the British Museum was talking about, I mean, it's very lengthy, but I'll read a bit of it. We were informed that a significant proportion of registered attendees were individuals intending to deliberately disrupt the event, preventing others from participating in good faith and undermining the purpose of the programme. The British Museum fully recognises the importance of lawful protest and freedom of expression in a democratic society. Equally, we have a responsibility to ensure that events hosted within the museum can proceed safely. So what they could have done is just remove those people, or said, you can, we'd like you to leave.
Yeah.
But instead they cancelled the event or postponed the event.
I know, and they said they're going to reschedule it, but when they reschedule it, they're going to stop these people coming? Are they going to vet all the people? They totally are, and I think Suella Braverman said this, wrong, you've given into the bullies, to the mob and the extremists, and I totally agree. I mean, it really worries me, the things that you can and can't say, and this is linked into what happened to Helen Mirren as well, Dame Helen Mirren, that there is a degree to which, when you've spent 80 years on this earth, you've seen things go by. You understand that little bit more history because you were there. Yeah, but there is no respect for that anymore.
Well, what would you say to the devil's advocate point, Joe, which is that the man shouting at Helen Mirren had a right to free speech as well? What would you say to that?
He has an absolute right to go into the nearest pub, wherever he was going, and say to his company that night, oh, I just saw Helen Mirren, I don't approve of what she thinks of this, or, you know, what she says about that. But sorry, he doesn't have the right to go and berate her and shout at her. That's the difference. I mean, Kai and I can have vastly differing opinions tonight. Yeah, come the end of the programme, we'll shake hands and go in different directions. Yeah. We're not going to be standing out there brawling.
Exactly. On that British Museum point, though,
yes,
is it not better for the... wouldn't it be the wrong message to send, to allow it to go ahead knowing it would be disrupted, knowing that the message and the learning they were trying to pass on to the attendees who were there for legitimate reasons wouldn't actually take place? I mean, they should have foreseen this, of course, but it was taken in, you know, this decision was taken in partnership with the Jewish Culture Month, which is the organisation they were doing this event with. Surely this is the right approach by the British Museum, because things like this put a huge onus on organisations.
You're giving into the mob. You're giving into the mob.
No, but it's not giving into the mob if it means that this event can take place at a different time, not
they'll just do the same thing again.
Not disrupting. Well, I mean, that's the risk, but I think...
But it's always going to be the risk. And if if these people say, right, we're going to stop this going ahead, they've succeeded.
Well, they've succeeded. If they've disrupted the event, they've got their clips for social media, and the event doesn't take place, and nobody learns anything from the event. That was the point of the event. Surely.
So what's the right thing to do here?
Well, they should have organised it properly, have better vetting of the attendees.
How do you vet attendees? It's a public
Presumably there has to be a way of doing it. But this goes back to the point, doesn't it? The organisations, in the fact that they can't trust on outside intervention, they can't trust on necessarily the police
perhaps,
who don't have the resources to deal with something like this. It's all on the British Museum, and by that what we mean is the most junior members of staff who end up ticketing these events and being at the front desk and so on. That's why they've taken this approach, presumably, is because of the risk to their staff as well. If this went wrong and the event had gone ahead, they knew that there was a problem, they still went ahead with it.
Do you agree with that, Joe? I mean, they paid George Osborne enough, maybe they could put some of that money into security.
No, my thoughts are that they've already identified there's a risk because they know the people that have signed up for it who are likely to cause trouble. Well, if you know who the troublemakers are, stop them. You know, if you vetted them already to that degree that you know that there are issues, deal with them and carry on with the event, because just to postpone it simply means that you undergo the same thing again, and perhaps those dissenting few grow in number.
We'll return to various stories, including Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, Richard in Leicester says it's old news talking about Sturgeon, but actually there's more crazy revelations every day. And thank you to Elisa in Chelmsford, who's been on the John Lewis website to tell me what this LED lighting around the rim on a motion sensor makeup mirror does. It automatically lights up as your face approaches. Its light system simulates natural sunlight, allowing you to see full colour variation, so you'll know when your makeup is colour correct and flawless. It also has a candlelight setting, so you can check your look in low light before you go. There we are. Well, listen, I don't think I'll be spending £380 on it, I must say. but the makeup women here, I must say, they're all women. The artists here do a fantastic job making me look vaguely human, so I don't scare people over their dinner. Thank you to John in Lincolnshire as well. He says, happy birthday, Peter, for Monday. Who knows? Someone might buy you a copy of Political Animals, soon to be available in paperback. Have a good time. Regards, John in Lincolnshire. You see, if I said that, Ofcom would be on me, would be down on me like a ton of bricks. But yes, it is out in paperback soon. Which reminds me, I have to ring Gavin Williamson, because sadly, Cronus the spider is sadly no longer with us. What a tangled web we weave. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Angie, who makes a really good point. She says, good evening, Cardi P. No one has been covering the number of child deaths this bank holiday weekend, which saw a number of teenagers and 3 adults losing their lives in ponds, lakes, rivers and the sea. Please, can we talk about child safety and the heat? Can we explain to these teenagers how dangerous it is getting into water can be? Do you know what, actually? I was out and about in London today and I saw a number of what looked like teenagers, young people anyway, and they were clearly considering going into the Thames, which is not the safest of activities, it must be said. Joe Wheeler, as well as being a brilliant political commentator, is also a meteorologist. Joe, can you just tell us what's going to happen over the next few days? Is it going to remain incredibly sunny, or what's going to happen?
No. We see a gradual breakdown in the weather from the west, and it becomes cooler and more changeable. But you know something, we have over the last few days, as well as flagging up the heat, we have been speaking about this cold water shock and the risk of it, because, you know, spoken a lot about the weather, and it is only a couple of weeks ago that we were talking about temperatures being below average, northerly winds, overnight frost, etc. And then suddenly we're into these 30, 35 degrees Celsius heat. But the thing is, the bodies of water around us, the seas and also the lakes, they haven't caught up.
It takes a while for them to heat up, doesn't it? Yeah.
So the temperature of parts of the oceans around us are only about 11 or 12 degrees Celsius. And if you're plunging in from a point of view of 35 degrees, that is a huge shock, that kind of temperature differential. Yeah. So actually there has been a big thing made of it, and my heart goes out to any parents who've lost a child over the last few days. I mean, that is tragic at any time, but certainly, you know, something which potentially could have been prevented is tragic.
And often these changes in our environment sort of encourage people to act in different ways. Just on the forecast level, what's going to happen sort of tomorrow, the end of the weekend? What's happening there?
Well, oddly enough, the kind of the warm weather didn't quite vanish yesterday, but temperatures dropped and then they came back today. I think parts of the country have seen temperatures 30 degrees Celsius today. It's not looking too bad for tomorrow and Saturday, a few showers around, but then rain coming through on Saturday night is going to take temperatures back to what we'd expect at this time of year. Mobile westerly.
Thank you for that, Joe. Always, I mean, you just get so much out of a conversation with Joe Wheeler, I'm not going to lie to you. Speaking of storm clouds gathering, Scotland is an interesting place at the moment. Politically, John Swinney, the slightly tetchy, I think we can probably say, First Minister, saying, I'll apologise if it's worthwhile. Some of the some of the interesting things, as part of a plea deal, Peter Murrell, who was Nicola Sturgeon's now estranged husband, these things weren't going to be put in. We've talked about the motion sensor makeup mirror, and thank you to Lisa and Shelford for that astonishing kind of revelation of what that is. Also, women's razors, knickers, makeup, fitness gear were deleted. 2,000.
Two handbags.
2,700 listed on vanity products, £886 of foundation. I mean, that's a lot of foundation. You build a house out of that. £300 Dyson hairdryer. This is for a bald man. His wife knew nothing about it. And 9 makeup organisers at £116. Nike tracksuits totalling £175, plus a £3,775 camera and £466 of accessories. But my favourite bit of the whole thing is he bought a book by Isabel Hardman, great journalist, a book titled Why We Get the Wrong Politicians.
You couldn't make it up, really. I mean, it isn't extraordinary.
Maybe his wife was on the front of it.
I mean, it's the brazenness of it all, isn't it, that makes it seem like compulsive behaviour. There's something clearly wrong that we're not quite seeing, and that's why I think so many people reading this story can't help but conclude that Nicola Sturgeon surely knew, just because they can tell something stinks. And so I really think, I think we're in a political culture right now that demands rigorous honesty. We don't, and when we don't get it, then of course people think there's something wrong. I don't personally. I can sort of see a world where actually there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for some of this, most of this, but that case is very difficult to make when it just seems like, you know, they're not being honest with the public. And now with these revelations today about there being taxpayer cash as well, of course, that the SNP received during that time, and whether that means taxpayers have been, you know, on the hook for some of this ridiculous expense, adds to the questions, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does, and we've seen as well in terms of a lack of candour, the Mandelson revelations as well, the fact that cabinet ministers were asked specifically for their WhatsApps, for special advisors, where as well any contact they had with Peter Mandelson was meant to go to the Cabinet Office. They could redact it if it was on national security grounds, but you can't redact it if it's simply embarrassing. And some cabinet ministers, some special advisors said, oh well, this is a personal conversation, it's not relevant. Well, we'll let the Cabinet Office decide that. And the problem is, it's in so many different parties. I'm not absolving the Conservatives or any other party about it. It's in Reform as well, where people just want them to be honest and straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody should have just a preternatural and automatic assumption that complete transparency as much as possible, where possible, is the best route. I think politicians are also just so worried about everything, certain things that might be reasonable or where there's context being blown out into a scandal. We've seen some examples recently where you see a story and you think, hang on, is that not just the natural order of business when you're sort of wheeling and dealing, trying to make a living in the world of politics?
Well, it's interesting that Wes Streeting's approach, actually, when he put his messages to Peter Mandelson, all of them, in the public domain, knowing that would be something that would be tricky. And he said, you know, the government has no growth strategy, for example, which was embarrassing, but not the end of the world.
Exactly, and that's what's really interesting, this dynamic where Wes Streeting decided that there were these anonymous briefings going around saying, oh, he has this very close relationship with Mandelson, he's very damaged by what is about to come out, and he got out in front of that. You'd hope that more people learn from that example.
Why did they never learn, Joe?
Really very hard to say. I mean, but we started this conversation talking about Morell and Nicola Sturgeon and the utterly ridiculous things that were bought, and we've moved on to Mandelson. And I mean, part of this is just standing back in disbelief and saying, it is all so obvious, and yet we're being asked to believe something else. And yes, of course, if anybody had any dialogue with Mandelson and they wanted to put the record straight, they should have been upfront about it, not hide it.
I've worked it out. I've worked out why they needed a motion-censored makeup mirror. I've worked it out why they needed a motion-censored makeup mirror, because it was going to go in the camper van.
Oh, well, of course.
But if you're on the move, you need it to be motion-censored.
This is true. Now, as you know, one of my passions in life is vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, how many of you? 12?
Oh. Yeah, 12.
12. Sorry, is that normal? We're not gonna, yeah, she's the wrong person to ask. We're not going to skate over this. We're going to make it very clear that Joe Wheeler owns 12 functioning
Vacuum cleaners, because I like vacuum cleaners.
Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, but sorry, that also extends to all other appliances. So if I had a husband who bought not just 2 kettles, but 2 in a day,
right,
this would ring alarm bells with me, because obviously this, for me, would be something that would need researching and you know, much decision making. So to buy 1, let alone 2 in a day, you know, surely the alarms would be going off.
It's an interesting one. So,
and not.
Joe, I mean, back to the vacuum cleaners. I mean, you've got 12 of those. How many other appliances do you have? Are there other appliances that you have multiple numbers? I mean, can you talk us through this? Perhaps, you weirdo.
12 is the standard number? Is there something cosmic about the number 12?
No. I mean, it became clear some time ago that I've got a fondness for vacuum cleaners. It's kind of like the carrot. When I need to do something that I don't want to do, I go, if I do that, then I can research and find a new vacuum cleaner. Yeah.
Okay. How about dishwashers?
And I've only got one of those.
One dishwasher. How do you rank the vacuum cleaners? I mean, is it all about the suction?
To a degree, yes. And in fact, some of those that have a really bad review are the best ones, because it says, you know, it's like having a workout in the gym. But it depends whether you...
So the vacuum sucks too much?
Yes, you need it to suck too much.
Right, we're going to a break now. We're going to a break. We're going to talk about serious things after the break. Stay with us here on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, Peter. Says Penny in Essex. To shout out Zionist B-word at Helen Mirren, or anyone else for that matter, is absolutely appalling. When is this anti-Jewish, pro-Palestinian racism ever going to stop? Why can't these idiots ever realise that Hamas attacked Israel, not the other way around? Israel have to keep fighting to stop that atrocious day ever happening again, says Penny. Very, very wise words, and thank you for them. John in Sutton has some thoughts on Henry Nowak. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Not a word from the woke creeps on the killing of young Henry Nowak. Starmer, Lammy, Cooper, where are they, says John. This is an absolute scandal, a really, really horrible, dreadful story about Henry Nowak, a young man who was stabbed by someone with a Sikh ceremonial sword, and the police were there. The police were called. There was a 999 call. There was incorrect information given in the 999 call, and this is the person who stabbed Henry Nowak, a university student, stabbed him to death. Vikram Digwa used an 8-inch blade and said he carried as part of a Sikh faith to kill Henry Nowak, an 18-year-old who was walking home from a night out in Southampton on the 3rd of December. Digwa, who's 23, told Southampton Crown Court a wicked lie that he had acted in self-defence, claiming the teenager had used a racist insult, punched him and knocked his turban off. That was not the case. The jury rejected this defence and found him guilty of murder. Now, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary referred itself to the Independent Office of Police Conduct over the death. Officers initially handcuffed and arrested Henry as he lost consciousness. This guy had been stabbed and they handcuffed him and arrested him. There has been an apology. They said that officers faced an extremely complex crime scene. This is what the police said about this. They have been interviewed today.
What action is being taken in relation to the officers who handcuffed him?
We referred ourselves immediately to the Independent Office of Police Conduct the following day, and they've been independently investigating ever since. We are absolutely committed to acting on their findings. The officers are witnesses in that case. As I say, it's clear to me the circumstances were complex.
But that was despite Henry saying that he had been stabbed.
So Henry clearly says he's been stabbed, and it's quite clear that officers don't immediately understand that that's what's happened. Whilst he did have some injuries, that significant bleeding was internal. There was not a significant out of blood where Henry was. The pathologist is clear that that fatal wound was deep and internal, the bleeding was internal. And yes, despite that, there was nothing that officers could have done to save Henry's. So this case is about officers who have limited information, far less information than we have now, who were lied to by Henry's killer on that call. Only one person is responsible for killing Henry, and that's the man who stabbed him that night.
That was Robert France there, the temporary Deputy Chief Constable of Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary. Is that good enough, Kai?
No, there's been a few excuses given by the police, haven't there? That they were lied to, that it was a complicated crime scene, and then this odd thing that the courts heard about Noack having been drinking to a level that was below the drink-drive limit. You wonder why that information is even in
relevant.
the papers.
He was on a night out. He wasn't operating heavy machinery. He wasn't driving a car. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally legal activity.
If he's under the drink-drive limit, then to me, to us, that's, I mean, completely irrelevant. He'd had half a beer. I mean, so you have to ask, why are there so many excuses being made? And if it transpires that indeed there's something else going on here that many people will be wondering, I think, reading this, and that there may be a cultural sensitivities involved in why this wasn't treated properly, then it seems like a tragic, avoidable death. And it's obviously right that they've referred themselves to the IOPC. But clearly that has to go further, because if this is happening elsewhere across the country, this won't be the only example that we see in the next few years. You'd hope that the tide is turning on things like this. I had hoped that that was the case, but clearly not. This is so recent, isn't it?
There are various things in this story, as Kai's mentioned, drinking to a level that was below the drink-drive limit. Yeah. Who cares? Yeah. But the guy who's been found guilty, this Vikram Digwa, claimed that the teenager had used a racist insult, punched him and knocked his turban off, which he obviously didn't. So what was the reason for the attack? Why did he pull a knife on him anyway?
And even if he had, even if someone had done those terrible things, which Henry Noack didn't, and I'm absolutely clear on that, still he should have been given medical attention. And even if someone's lying on the ground saying, I have been stabbed, the police should not be handcuffing you. They should be they should check whether you're telling the truth, and they should certainly try to get you the medical attention you need. Absolutely.
And Henry was a youngster. He was in his first year of university. I mean, tragic beyond tragic. But it's men of that age that are most at risk out at night. You know, they are very, very vulnerable, and it is shocking when somebody says they've been stabbed, that they're hurt, that the police just carry on. It's mad.
Digwa is going to be sentenced on Monday in Southampton Crown Court, and all the detail of it, Henry Noack, first-year student at the University of Southampton from Essex, walking back to his accommodation after drinking to a level that was below the drink-driving limit. I mean, who cares? If you're out on a night out and you're fine, I mean, that's okay, even if he hadn't. And Digwa was in the road about 11:30 at night with a blade in a sheath around his neck. The court was told the attack was not witnessed, but neighbours heard Noack say he had been stabbed and was dying. He attempted to escape by climbing over a fence, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Prosecution said he was stabbed 5 times, including twice in the back of his legs, once in the face, and then the fatal wound to the chest. Digwa gave the knife to his mother. It was later found by police at their family home, along with more than 20 other Sikh weapons. Just a dreadful, dreadful story here. Joe?
I wasn't aware that the Criminal Justice Act of 1988 states that it shall be a defence for a person charged with having an article with blade or point in public place to prove that they had the article with them for religious reasons. In other words, to carry that knife was legal.
Yeah.
Now, it's not legal for everybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, on religious grounds, to be carrying an offensive weapon, I don't think that's okay.
Okay.
I mean, I understand for religious reasons, you know, there are differences in terms of wearing helmets and things for motorcycling or whatever. But I do not think...
But that's essentially your own risk. The Sikh Federation released a statement saying Henry's life has tragically been cut short by a moment of madness by an individual for which there can be no excuses. The wider Sikh community has faced considerable abuse and hate during the trial, claiming many do not understand the law or the significance of the kirpan, which is the knife. It said the large blade used by Digwa. It was not the normal kirpan worn by fully practicing Sikhs, adding this was an isolated incident. The Sikh community is committed to promoting greater understanding and ensuring lessons are learned. We'll continue to discuss this absolutely horrendous story as the programme goes on. If you want to comment on it, if you want to add to what Kai and Joe were saying, please give me a shout. 0344 499 1000. Water safety is something else people want to talk about. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P. Hi Joanna. Water safety in teenagers. My two granddaughters looking for fun water would normally go to Bournemouth Beach. With the attacks, it's too much of a risk. A few weeks ago, the eldest, who is a high functioning autistic, went with friends to a river. They were drinking alcohol, but she wasn't. She phoned her mother in a panic. She had pulled a shorter friend out of deep water, inebriated. She was frightened. Locally, they have redirected rivers, making difficult places dangerous. One of the weirs is in deeper water than before, and it just shows you, as Joanna has very starkly pointed out there, that things, of course, are changing and often change when the weather changes itself. On Henry Nowak, are all us right-wing thugs going to put out protesting, ripping down statues and making the country take the knee? We should, says Debbie. Well, I just want to be absolutely clear that I don't endorse or encourage any form of illegal action, but I think Debbie is speaking perhaps ironically there in regard to all of that. Lots on Helen Mirren as well. David in the Cotswolds says, I watched a clip on YouTube of the Helen Mirren abuse. I'm shocked and appalled by the number of likes and supporting comments to this disgraceful abuse, says David. Sincerely, I do not know what my country has become, and I do not know how I can become normal again. I'm not Jewish. If I were, I would feel in grave peril living in the sham of a country. Do you know who also isn't Jewish? Helen Mirren. She has Jewish roots, certainly, but she isn't Jewish herself, and she's subject to this kind of abuse. And it's not the same, and I'm not comparing myself to Helen Mirren. I'm not saying I'm a celebrity or anything like that, but, you know, some of the stuff I do, obviously, my job is a public thing. And there was a particularly fractious interview, you may remember it, with a lawyer who wanted to deprescribe Hamas, and someone, you know, in similar terms, actually, similar language, actually remonstrated with me on one occasion outside a tube station in London, and yeah, it was pretty intimidating. Actually, it wasn't very nice. The Israeli embassy has responded, the embassy in London, to what happened to Helen Mirren. Said after she was publicly accosted and targeted with what they call horrible slurs by an anti-Israel thug. Zionism is not a dirty word nor a curse, and it never will be. It's shameful to see people in the UK feel so comfortable attacking others simply for believing in the Jewish people's right to a Jewish state. The continued incitement to hatred and violence on the streets of Britain is deeply concerning, and we call on the UK government to take action against the dangerous rhetoric spreading in the streets. Just one more thing I want to talk to Kai and to Joe about as well is this NEETs report, the NEETs hitting a 12-year high. This is people not in education, employment or training. We're hoping to speak to one of these million people later on in the evening. Joe, what did you make of this report?
I was actually really shocked by it. I have 5 children, thankfully, all are, you know, up and working and all the rest of it. But if your children are growing up now, would you advise them to go to university? Would you advise them to take an apprenticeship? Would you advise them to just get out of education and get into some kind of employment now, doing whatever you can? Because these are shocking figures. They're absolutely horrendous. And I don't quite know where to turn. And I don't think the government's got any idea which way to turn either.
What do you think yourself, Kai?
Well, the reason this report hasn't been tackled, or this will take a while for the government to handle, simply because it's such a complicated issue, and that Alan Milburn himself has sort of pointed towards a few different factors, but all of them need sort of a rigorous assessment on its own terms. For instance, you know, that one of the headlines from just before this report came out was the impact of social media and of doom scrolling on people, these NEETs' ability to their impact on their attention spans, their impact on sort of how they adapt in the world of work or don't. That is one small element of it, but then there's everything else related to the recent workers' rights reforms that may have had an impact on an ongoing basis on how many people actually enter the workforce in entry-level jobs. So it's a perfect storm for the government, and it also requires, and something the report doesn't face up to, is it requires looking at some of the policy changes already enacted.
Yes.
With a critical eye and thinking, well, it's had these second-order effects that we didn't anticipate. How can we mitigate those now? Is it that they repeal it or look to adjust those policies, or do they not want to save face?
We're going to talk about this a lot more over the course of the programme. If you are a NEET, I'd love to hear from you. If you're someone who's not in education, employment or training for whatever reason, and there will be no judgment, I'm just interested to hear your story, please do give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. I was sitting in a meeting, meeting of the, we're talking about all our different radars and all the different ratings that we've got, which are very good at the moment, which is fantastic. And someone from Talk Sport, which is our sister station, of course, said, well, obviously there's this big event that's happening in about 4 weeks in America and Canada, and every single person in the room was like, haha, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I didn't know what they're talking about. But they were talking about the World Cup, which is apparently happening, and our colleagues over there have spoken to Keir Starmer about this. This is what he said.
Last question, we've got the World Cup coming up. How important is it that we bring home the World Cup to lift the nation?
Oh, so important. It would be fantastic. Obviously last done under a Labour government. Let's hope it can be done under a Labour government again. But look, he's got a great squad. He's got some real talent in there, some really exciting mix of, people who've been there before, people coming in for the first time. Really interesting lineup there. Great players. Let's go out there. Let's bring it back home. We've tried it so often, but we've got to bring it back.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. If you do take part in the train, I've got some shin pads you might want to
won't be seeing some of of what's been going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of two-footers out there. You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful.
If I walk into Prime Minister's questions with
I think it'll be worse.
On crutches,
I think it'll be worse.
There'll be a lot of explaining to do.
TalkSport colleagues there, Darren Bent and Andy Goldstein, speaking to the Prime Minister. I was going to ask you, Joe Wheeler, about football, but instead I'm going to ask you in the last minute of the programme. I've got a number of vacuum cleaner related comments that have come in. Melanie says, does Joe have a vax for pets? Is Dyson worth the cash? Michelle says, I have an old Henry, a pink Henry Quick, a Dyson Animal Upright, a Dyson Pull-Along Ball, a mini vac, a generic robot vac, another stick vacuum upstairs, a window vac, and I've tried to throw a few out over the last few years, says Michelle. What are your thoughts on those?
I like the Vax Pet Pro. That's one of my favourite.
Okay.
Dysons are great, but they're overly sensitive. I mean, you have to be kind of really gentle around them. I do like a Karcher with the kind of power to suck up small children and then sort them out afterwards. And in fact, that's what I used to do when the kids were small. I used to go around and hoover up all the Lego and the Polly Pocket and everything, and then put it in the middle of the floor and sort it out to where it was supposed to go.
You're like a Hoovering Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
Put that in your Twitter bio. Margaret's been in touch and said, I bought 8 kettles, the same make as a backup, and a backup microwave. Well, doesn't that say everything about these appliances that you don't think are necessarily going to work? Yeah, well, listen, loads in there. We've covered quite a lot of topics in the debate desk. Kai, thank you. Joe, thank you. Really appreciate you joining us today, and we'll get back to those messages from you in just a second. But a huge thanks to Joe and to Kai, Joe Wheeler and Kai Wilshaw. Plenty more to talk about in just a second. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 8 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Really appreciate your company on this Thursday evening. There's so much to talk about, including that dreadful anti-Zionist rant, that person calling Helen Mirren a national treasure, the B word, and slagging off her husband as well. Two senior citizens, 80 and 81, simply because of her support from Israel. She hadn't said anything at all. She was simply walking along the street. This guy films it and knows he will get away with it. Absolutely dreadful. We'll talk about that in a second with Gary Mond, the chairman of Reformed Jewish Alliance. We'll talk about the British Museum as well, postponing an event because thugs who are pro-Palestinian want to disrupt it. We'll talk about Henry Nowak and that dreadful murder of him, and the excuses that were made and the feelings that the police took part in. Nicola Sturgeon, you still want to talk about her, and I'm very, very happy to. Further revelations today about the huge amount of money that was spent on bizarre items. We'll talk about NEETs as well, people not in education, employment or training. We're going to speak to a young person who's just gone back to university who says there are plenty of opportunities around. I wonder what you think about that. Also a business owner who has a perspective on it. Lots of different perspectives this evening. I want to get yours as well, so please do give me a shout. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note or a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss here on the Evening Exchange on Talk. Lots on Henry Nowak and that justification by the police. In fact, can we just see that clip again, actually, of the police? Because this is the temporary Deputy Chief Constable, Robert France, who is from Hampshire on the Isle of Wight Constabulary. This is about the man who's been convicted of murder for stabbing Henry Nowak, a university student, to death with a ceremonial Sikh knife. He's been found guilty of murder. There was a wicked lie, as the court has been told, that he acted in self-defence. He claimed the teenager used a racist insult, punched him and knocked his turban off. None of that happened. That didn't happen. Henry was an innocent victim. This is what the police said about their conduct, because Henry was lying on the ground. He had been stabbed. He said, "I've been stabbed." He said, "I'm dying," and he was handcuffed and the police essentially treated him as a perpetrator. I'm sure lessons will be learned. It's infuriating. This is what Robert France, the temporary Deputy Chief Constable of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary, has said about this.
What action is being taken in relation to the officers who handcuffed him?
We referred ourselves immediately to the Independent Office of Police Conduct the following day, and they've been independently investigating ever since. We are absolutely committed to acting on their findings. The officers are witnesses in that case. As I say, it's clear to me the circumstances were complex.
But that was despite Henry saying that he had been stabbed.
So Henry clearly says he's been stabbed, and it's quite clear that officers don't immediately understand that that's what's happened. Whilst he did have some injuries, that significant bleeding was internal. There was not a significant out of blood where Henry was. The pathologist is clear that that fatal wound was deep and internal. The bleeding was internal. And yes, despite that, there was nothing that officers could have done to save Henry's. So this case is about officers who have limited information, far less information than we have now, who were lied to by Henry's killer on that call. Only one person is responsible for killing Henry, and that's the man who stabbed him that night.
What do you make of those excuses from the police? Let me know your thoughts. Give me a ring or drop me a WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. That's exactly what Michelle has done. She says it was a racist attack on a white boy. It's happening quite frequently. Our people are hated, and it's allowed to continue on the altar of diversity. It needs to be called out. These minorities, not so much. The next census will be a shock. Know how to play the race card. I have had enough of our tolerance being used against us. Rest in peace, Henry, and all the love in the world to his parents, who I can't even imagine are feeling right now. As a mother to a little white boy, I worry every day for his future in this insane, dangerous country where none of us are safe. What was this man doing with a knife anyway? Well, he said he was carrying it for religious reasons, and Sikhs can carry knives for religious reasons, but he had many knives, only one of which he appeared to be carrying at the time, I think. Debbie says that policeman says the officers couldn't understand Henry's plea for help. Does that mean the police officers couldn't speak English? I mean, if someone says, I have been stabbed, and denies that they are the perpetrator, you should at least check, I think. I think the police have many questions to answer here. Another big story people are talking about this evening is certainly about Nicola Sturgeon and the further revelations today about Peter Murrell, her estranged husband, in regard to what he bought with that money that was originally earmarked for the for various things to do with the Scottish independence referendum. Steve in East Yorkshire said, I don't think it's right to make fun of Peter Murrell. I worry about his well-being if he goes to prison. I mean, how will he cope without his Lalique salt and pepper shakers? I don't even know how to pronounce the name of the salt and pepper shakers. Salt and pepper shakers were £2,500. Russ has contacted me from Manchester about this. He sent me a voice note. It's dead easy to do this. You just send me a voice note via WhatsApp. Keep it to about less than a minute. We'll get as many of them on as we can. Let's hear what Russ in Manchester has to say about this.
Hi, Russ from Manchester. Great show. So we know about Angela Rayner, we know about Sturgeon, or shall we say her husband, or both of them, allegedly. So these are top jobs, you know, and they've been caught. So imagine how many other people are doing this in Parliament, because I guarantee there's hundreds of people that are really fleecing the system and really are breaking the rules.
Russ, I know what you mean, and I have those suspicions too. The thing I would just add, just for context to this, you may not know this wasn't public money. This was money that people had donated to the Scottish independence referendum campaign, to the SNP. So it wasn't as if they were fleecing the taxpayer, but they were fleecing quite a few people, one of whom we spoke to the other night, actually. Helen Mirren, huge story this evening. The actress was out with her husband, who's 81, she's 80. They're out for an evening. This guy says, oh, there's Helen Mirren. She turns around, smiles, greets the guy, and this is what happens. Absolutely shameful.
Hi, Peter. Please tell Kai that he's got this completely wrong.
No, sorry, we'll get that voice note from Elisa in just a second, actually, on Helen Mirren, but let's just see the clip of what happened to Helen Mirren first.
And there's Helen Mirren, the avowed Zionist. She said Israel should last forever because of the Holocaust. And she was very happy the Palestinian houses. You put the post up, you evil old bag. You're an evil Zionist, and you as well, you and all.
Dreadful, absolutely dreadful. This is what Elisa thinks.
Hi, Peter. Please tell Kai that he's got this completely wrong. You cannot give in to the mob, because when you give in to the mob, they keep coming back for more, as has been proven since October the 8th, 2023. The mob have been coming on us all the time. They haven't been dealt with, and so they keep coming back and attacking us Jews non-stop. Enough! People are sick of it. Whether they're Jewish, not Jewish, celebrities or not, we are all sick of it. And it's time for this government to stand up to them.
Elisa, thank you for that wise words. And she's referencing, as well as the Helen Mirren story, she's referencing the British Museum postponing a Jewish event over protest fears. Let's speak to Gary Mond. He is the chairman of Reformed Jewish Alliance. Gary, good to have you on the programme. First of all, what do you think of this dreadful attack, verbal attack on Helen Mirren?
Well, it's a symptom of the fundamental cause that anti-Semitism has been running riot and is getting worse and worse. It's one of the reasons why Jews are now leaving this country. We had the case of Jeremy Jacobs, the former chief executive of the United Synagogue. He's left the country. That was news last week. And more people are doing so because nothing is being done about it. Nothing was done by the last Conservative government. Nothing is being done by this Labour government. And what we saw with regarding Helen Mirren was just simply another symptom of the fundamental cause, which is Jew hatred, which is being allowed to run riot because governments do nothing.
And this will continue. We saw it with Matt Lucas as well. And actually, unlike Helen Mirren, Matt Lucas has, to my knowledge, actually never put really anything in the public domain about his Jewish faith or support for Israel or not support for Israel. He signed a letter, certainly, saying that the hostages taken by Hamas terrorists should be released. I don't think that's a controversial act at all. I can't think of any right-thinking person who wouldn't have thought that those hostages should have been released, yet he was accosted too. Now, that man apparently lost his job, and I'll shed absolutely no tears for that. But simply filming these things, as that person did with Helen Mirren, that person knows that there will probably be no consequences for him, and that he can just do that with impunity.
Yes, one of the factors that's sitting behind this is total intolerance of anyone else's views. If someone signs a letter, that's up to them and it's all well and good. But to actually try to attack them in any way, verbally or physically, because of their views and because they sign letters is absolutely unacceptable. And whether someone is extremely pro-Israel or just wanting to see the hostages free makes no difference. The hatred on the side of the so-called pro-Palestinians is so profound that it's got completely out of control.
Very interesting as well on the British Museum. We talked a little bit about this earlier in the programme, postponing a lecture for the Jewish Culture Month because of concerns the event would be disrupted by protesters. Now, Suella Braverman, the Reform UK politician, has responded to George Osborne in one of his many jobs as chairman of the British Museum, and they have said in a statement, which he has encouraged people to read, that if people were going to deliberately disrupt the event, that would prevent others from participating in good faith and undermine the purpose of the programme. They said following discussions with organisers and security partners, a joint decision was taken to postpone the event to a later date when it can take place in an environment that properly safeguards both the audience experience and the integrity of the programme itself. Suella Braverman has said, wrong call. You've given in to the bullies, to the mob and to the extremists. More weakness from the establishment elites, just like the Met Commissioner, the universities and the BBC, said Suella Braverman, the Reform UK politician. What do you think about what the British Museum has done here?
Well, Suella Braverman is 100% right. It is a question of giving in to mob rule. The message that this action of postponement gives is a message of you can do what you like and we will jump to whatever to your tune. We must be prepared to fight this, and there may need to be better security. I understand that, and that might cost more money, but we should not give in to mob rule, which is what the action of the postponement is actually doing, especially when you've got this brilliant exhibit of the ancient history of Israel and Judea going back 3,000 years, which is fascinating both to Jews and Christians alike.
And of course, there are so many people who don't want to acknowledge that history. They want to call people in Israel colonialists because they don't want to acknowledge that that was their land many hundreds and thousands of years ago.
Yes, and what this exhibit is showing, it's the proof of that. And of course, they don't want to see the proof. And, you know, it's so important, both to Jews and to Christians. I have a friend who goes to church on Sundays, and regularly there's a section read out from the Old Testament at the times of the kings of Israel, which relates to what would have been included in the exhibit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think I might, possibly in the sands of time back in my very religious upbringing, might even remember that. Gary, listen, thanks for your comments on all of that. That's Gary Maund there. He's chairman of the Reformed Jewish Alliance. Appreciate him getting in touch. Thank you too. Lots of people getting in touch on Henry Nowak as well. Mary in Cumbria says, my husband is a retired police sergeant and says a policeman's first reaction is to initially preserve life and to believe nobody until all relevant checks have been made. As soon as the person said he'd been stabbed, one of the officers should have checked him over. My husband is appalled that this wasn't done. In his opinion, today's policing leaves much to be desired. Well, Mary, thank you for that. Lovely to hear from you there. I know you're contributing a bit more to the programme. It's always good to hear your common sense there, and indeed that of your husband up in Cumbria, so thank you. Stephen in Dubai says, will the Sikh community now commit to blunt its weapons and forbid them being carried in the street for the sake of social cohesion? Great show, says Stephen. We'll talk more about that as the show goes on, certainly. John in Lincolnshire says, with the numerous drownings, including the 3 ladies at Brighton recently, maybe there's a good case to bring back the public information film's Lonely Water, widely regarded as an extremely unsettling and successful campaign in the 1970s. We've certainly been talking about these horrible deaths that have happened as the weather has been absolutely lovely, of course, as Joe Wheeler was mentioning earlier, the political commentator and meteorologist, was saying that there is, of course, that cold water shock. There is danger in water wherever it is, and these dreadful and very sad deaths have happened over the past number of days. Jo also talked a little bit about her slightly eccentric collection of vacuum cleaners, which got lots of people getting in touch. And Simi says, I'm not very domesticated, so I don't collect household items, but I do have over 1,000 clipper lighters. I was a clipper maniac, see what you did there. But it's a true story and it's a great show, says Simi. Well, thank you. What's the oldest thing you collect? What do you have a collection of? I'd be very interested to hear from people who have older collections than vacuum cleaners or indeed clipper lighters. Whatever you collect, why ever you collect it, let me know. 0344 499 1000. We'll go to your calls, text, tweets and voice notes next here on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of people reacting to these police excuses over Henry Nowak. Ted has sent me a voice note. You can do this very easily. Just send it through on 0344 499 1000 via WhatsApp. This is what Ted has to say.
Hi, Peter. One man is laying on the floor telling the police that he's been stabbed, and there must have been some sign of blood, surely. And he gets handcuffed. Presumably, the other guy is at the scene, stood up with a sword in his hand, and he's not being handcuffed. I don't see any sense in that whatsoever. Cheers, Ted from Newport.
Ted, thank you for being in touch from Newport about that. Shannon Bromley says, incomplete information, a complex situation. Seriously, I've been stabbed. That seems pretty clear to me. They've chosen to ignore his pleas. It's disgusting. And their boss sounds like a complete balloon, in the words of Sean from Bromley. Well, let's hear from the Temporary Deputy Chief Constable of the Isle of Wight and Hampshire Police, who is Robert France. Let's just hear again what he said happened here from his perspective and how the officers actually reacted to this. Lots of people getting in touch. I just want to be absolutely clear that they have their say. The police have their say in this, and then you'll have your say in just a second. I'm going to take some calls on this. Let's hear from Robert France, the Temporary Deputy Chief Constable.
What action is being taken in relation to the officers who handcuffed him?
We referred ourselves immediately to the Independent Office of Police Conduct the following day, and they've been independently investigating ever since. We are absolutely committed to acting on their findings. The officers are witnesses in that case. As I say, it's clear to me the circumstances were complex.
But that was despite Henry saying that he had been stabbed?
So Henry clearly says he's been stabbed. It's quite clear that officers don't immediately understand that that's what's happened. Whilst he did have some injuries, that significant bleeding was internal. There was not a significant out of blood where Henry was. The pathologist is clear that that fatal wound was deep and internal. The bleeding was internal. And yes, despite that, there was nothing that officers could have done to save Henry's. So this case is about officers who have limited information, far less information than we have now, who were lied to by Henry's killer on that call. Only one person is responsible for killing Henry, and that's the man who stabbed him that night.
That's Robert France there, who's the temporary Deputy Chief Constable of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Police. Lots of people getting in touch about this, including Ian in Bridgend. Ian, what are your thoughts, particularly about the Sikh perpetrator here who's been carrying this knife, as many Sikhs do?
Hello, Peter. Yes. Well, I was astounded to hear that they're allowed to carry these, was it kurbans they call?
Kurbans, yeah. I mean, most Sikhs who carry them don't use them to stab people.
No, I know, but all the same, you know, if I carry a penknife over 3 inches in length, I'm prone to having my collar felt by the copper. It's ridiculous. You know, we all used to carry penknives as kids, but you don't do it these days. But they have this exemption. The exemption goes back to they're not required to wear crash helmets as well. There was a retired teacher. He died in Pentonville prison. He wouldn't accept this unfair treatment back in the 80s. You know,
yeah, speaking of the 80s, actually, you're absolutely right. This goes back. This particular bit about the kirpan, the blade, goes back to Section 139 of the Criminal Justice Act 1988. Every day is a school day. External. States that it shall be a defence for a person charged with having an article or blade or point in public place to prove that they have the article with them for religious reasons. If the item is used in an act of violence, then it is deemed an offensive weapon. So it's not really a defence. It's there for religious purposes, but if they use it in a violent act, well, then that defence disappears. So maybe it's okay, is it?
Well, no, you know, it could be used in a threatening manner. Does that mean to say then that a Gurkha can quite openly carry a cookery in public? You know, once it's out, they've got to use it, haven't they, as they say.
Well, I mean, I think all those points seem to make sense to me, Ian. The Sikh Federation UK said fully practising Sikhs who wear a kirpan with us carrying the ceremonial knife should continue to recognise the serious responsibility that accompanies it, together with the limited legal protection that exists for wearing it for genuine religious purposes. What do you make of that, Ian?
Well, I acknowledge that the Sikhs, you know, they are very peaceful.
They're generally a pretty peaceful people. There aren't too many violent Sikhs. This scumbag who murdered Henry Nowak is the exception rather than the rule. I think we can reasonably say when it comes to the Sikh community. That's
right, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, no, they shouldn't be allowed to carry these things at all. No.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Ian. Really interesting to talk to you, and thank you for that. Nicola Sturgeon, another big story. This story, we keep getting this information about these huge number of items that her husband Peter Merrill was buying. I know Stephen Scunthorpe has some thoughts about this. Steve, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening. First off, I'd just like to comment on this stabbing.
Yes, of course. Please do.
Do we know what time the ambulance was called, when it was called?
I'll see if I have it in front of me. I don't think I do, but I know the incident happened at about 11:30 at night.
The other question is this violent Britain that it's getting, that girls are raped, everything like that. I love to carry a knife. If somebody can see I'm carrying a knife, then they might not attack. But other people, because of their religious beliefs, are allowed to carry a knife.
Honestly, Steve, I mean, I do not want a country where we're going around carrying knives. I do not want a country where we're going around carrying guns and so on. I am really... I know there's a big debate about guns in America and so on, and there are lots of people who carry knives and are not stopped from doing so, and absolutely should be. Do you think there should be a religious exception for Sikhs?
No, I can't see why. I say they should be blunted. The tips should be taken off. You know, why? Well, this is Britain. It's not a foreign country. You know, this is our country.
Okay.
If they can have one, I can wear one. But what I was going to say about Nicola Sturgeon.
Yes.
Didn't she sign off all these accounts?
She did.
So why is there not more questioning what, you know?
Well, it would be nice if there was a public inquiry, but John Swinney, who's the pretty tetchy First Minister of Scotland, says one is not required.
Well, can't Starmer overrule him?
No, I don't think he can actually, because it would be a devolved matter. But it's about the SNP as well. It's about their governance and their structures. It does seem pretty astonishing that Nicola Sturgeon didn't notice all this expensive tat that was coming into her house.
I mean, how much was gone? 400,000.
400,000 quid. Yeah, that's what he embezzled.
Look down and see.
It was over 12 years as well, but still quite a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. But guilty. She's guilty. She must have known.
Well, she absolutely denies that, Steve. And in fairness, the police didn't charge her. So she hasn't been cleared, but she certainly wasn't charged. So that's the point there. Steve, listen, thank you. Steve in Scunthorpe there. He asked specifically about the ambulance details there. I don't have that in front of me. I must say I've read quite a lot about this today, but certainly that 999 call was made by the perpetrator, the murderer's brother, and the police said they'd faced an extremely complex crime scene. It doesn't sound that, I mean, I'm not a police officer and I've never been in a situation like that, thank goodness, but it doesn't sound that complex to me, to be brutally honest. Thank you to Steve. Thanks to everybody who has been in touch. We'll take some more calls as the show goes on. In the 9 o'clock hour especially, there's plenty of time for calls, so please do keep them coming in and we'll make sure we get as many calls, texts, tweets and voice notes on the air as we can. 0344 499 1000. I just want to read an anonymous message about our next story. This is about NEETs, about people not in education, employment or training, and this is a really, really good message from someone I'm very happy to keep anonymous. In the Blair years, very, very low achieving students, some with poor or no GCSEs and no A-levels, were pushed into higher education. When they started to get low marks, they would be positively tested by their university as being dyslexic, when many actually were not. The same university where the student in question was, would then, paid by the student's local authority, assess for computer equipment and software paid for by the local authority, now by student finance. The report would recommend not giving lower marks for things like poor spelling. Even if the student passed and graduated, many could not actually use that degree. Disabled students allowance is now very different, but that is how Blair hijacked it. Really, really interesting message there, and that is someone who is on the inside of that sector, and I'm very happy not to name that person and to respect their wishes, because there's so much to talk about in all of this. There's so much that Alan Milburn, the former health secretary, has been looking into. Some of the statistics are absolutely astonishing. I was just reading this article earlier. For every £1 spent helping young people into work, we spend £25, your money and my money, taxpayers' money, keeping them on benefits. So we spent 25 quid keeping them on benefits, £1 spent helping young people into work, and 25 times that amount spent keeping them on benefits. It is absolutely outrageous. We also have the Centre for Social Justice releasing alarming statistics showing that for every young person who gained employment in Britain since 2020, 27 young non-EU migrants have been hired. I mean, what's going on here? There was a young female graduate interviewed on the BBC who complained she'd applied to between 200 and 300 jobs and had only actually heard back from about 10 of them. What is going on? This is absolutely crazy. We're going to speak properly about this, and we're going to hear from some really interesting guests, including a young person who is dealing with this. We're going to hear from a businessman and football club owner as well, and an academic and author who knows about this stuff back to front. I really want your views on it too. If you're a grandparent, if you're a parent, if you're a young person yourself, maybe you're someone a bit like me who's, you know, a few years into your career thinking, how can it be so tough? What is actually going on here? What are the legacies of things like lockdown? Why are young people so anxious? Why can't they hold down a job? And why are there all these barriers to them getting jobs in the first place, especially, as we've talked about in this programme recently, in the tax system too? So there's so much to discuss on this. I really want to hear what you have to say. 0344 499 1000. Stay with me.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason's been in touch from the Lake District. He says the sturgeon debacle doesn't pass the sniff test with the public. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter if she's innocent or guilty. The public just don't believe her. Lisa has been in touch and says, in regards to safety in the heat, I was a police officer and I was involved in something called Junior Citizen many years ago. Children explored various scenarios set up by the fire service, St John's Ambulance, road safety and the police. They learned about water safety, road safety, stranger danger and so on through real scenarios. I don't know if such initiatives still exist, but the children loved it, and I've no doubt that it raised crucial awareness. Well, I really hope that that happens, and certainly lots of people getting in touch about collecting things as well, including Nat, who says, I don't really collect anything, but I do love my tech, vacuum cleaners included. On a slightly more serious note, having lived in both Cyprus and Israel, I'm a tiny bit obsessed with pomegranates. You'll have to find quite a few decorative ones in my flat. Decorative pomegranates. Okay, fair enough. Speaking of collecting things, Debbie says the oldest collection I have is my parents. I'd like to keep hold of them. I feel exactly the same way, Debbie. Thanks to everybody who's been in touch on that range of matters. But we're going to talk now about the big political story of the day. I mean, it's a political story, but it affects basically everybody in the country as well, about this lost generation. Let me just read you some of these statistics here. 1,012,000 young people aged 16 to 24 are not in education, employment or training, certainly in the first quarter of this year, according to the latest data released by the Office of National Statistics today. In the report by Alan Milburn, who is the former Health Secretary, he learned that the number of NEETs, people not in education, employment and training, has increased by 89,000 compared with the same period last year. The figure is the highest it has been for 12 years, with the group representing 13.5% of all young people in the UK. It's higher for men than women, 14.4% of young men, 12.5% of young women, but both have increased. Alan Milburn then released his report, the former cabinet minister. He warned the number of young people who are NEET could rise to 1.25 million over the next 5 years. It says fewer opportunities, mental and physical health, lack of support for those using the welfare system. It estimates that the number growing of NEETs could cost the UK £125 billion annually. He says it is probably the most significant challenge facing our country. Probably the most significant challenge facing our country. Well, our country has a huge number of problems. There's a huge number of challenges. He thinks it's the number one. I wonder what Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, the academic and author, thinks. Lisa, I know you're in the Midlands. What do you make of this? What do you see? How do you deal with this, do you think? And crucially, who's to blame?
Well, I think this has been coming for a long time. I think those of us who work in this sector, I work at a university. I also do lots of research in Nottinghamshire, which is part of the Red Wall and has really been struggling over the last 20 years. We all saw that this was coming. We knew that this was coming. I'm surprised it's taken government so long, actually, to see it. And also, I'm surprised that they're not being fully honest with the public, because we've got this figure which is just under 5%. That's our unemployment rate. If we're being really honest about that, our unemployment rate is far higher than that. I would say that a substantial amount of people who are claiming disability allowances are actually unemployed.
Yeah.
So we have got a massive unemployment problem, which our government either doesn't know or they're hiding.
I'm not just going to blame Labour for this. This is successive governments. It's probably the government I was part of as well as a special advisor. It's successive Conservatives, Lib Dems who are in coalition, and Labour. I mean, this is generational, isn't it? This is something that has built up over a very long period of time. How do we even start to dismantle that?
Well, I think one of the things we've got to do is also recognise that the unemployment is uneven across the country. It's not the same everywhere. So where I am in the Red Wall in Nottinghamshire, unemployment here is quite high. Jobs are very low skilled, low paid. We've got hundreds and hundreds and thousands of agency jobs, which are not real jobs at all. People signing up for agencies, getting a couple of days here, a couple of days there work. Nobody feels secure. So one of the things we've got to do is be honest about the situation. We've got to look at the country and say...
Is this the honesty that's needed, Lisa? Is this saying, at least even diagnosing the problem and saying, this is a problem, here's why? Is that a good first step?
It's a good first step. And I think that the country, obviously, probably not you and not me, we're not surprised by this, but perhaps parts of the country are. Perhaps they don't see this sort of level of unemployment. Perhaps they don't see the level of, I don't know, hopelessness, absolute hopelessness. Where I am in the deindustrial parts of the country, people are absolutely hopeless. I know young people, they currently they're in some sort of college, or they're some sort of alternative provision, or they are doing something. But if you talk to the people who they work alongside and the people who work in those places, they will tell you that what happens once this course is finished, because there's no work out there.
And what are they actually being employed to do? I mean, AI is going to be part of this, and we'll talk about that a bit later in the programme as well. But I'm interested in what you said in your first answer, actually, about hidden unemployment and the fact that there are people who are on disability benefits who are hidden unemployed. Are there, I mean, I think it's pretty reasonable to say that there are far too many people on disability at the moment. I mean, the welfare bill in general, I'm not singling people out, I'm not being horrible about people who are genuinely disabled. If people are genuinely disabled, no problem. I pay my taxes, that's fine. You get benefits because of that, because you're genuinely disabled. No issue with that. There does seem to be a heck of a lot of people who have maybe some impairment, maybe there's some problem in their life, but they could do some work, and instead they're doing no work. And the system, to me, so I always bring up this example of a young woman in my life who was working, then she had severe mental health problems, and she absolutely did, proper, like, seriously diagnosable stuff. She's not working, she's on disability benefits, she wants to work, she thinks that would help her mental health, she wants to work, but she also says, if I get out of this disability system, getting back into it if this stuff happens again is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, and I think that successive governments have known this, and they've hidden unemployment amongst disability benefits, because if you are claiming a disability benefit, you're not counted as part of the unemployed. And unemployment frightens people. Mass unemployment really terrifies people. In the 1980s, this is exactly what the Margaret Thatcher government did. They moved hundreds of thousands of people from the unemployment benefit, and they put them onto disability. Tony Blair, they did the same thing. This is not an uncommon thing for governments to hide unemployment amongst disability benefits. So if we are being honest, and if we are saying something like perhaps we've got 6 or 7 million people unemployed, perhaps it's right that this is perhaps our biggest problem that we've got, because mass unemployment it's like a fog that seeps into our communities, and it absolutely draws out all hope.
Lisa, I mean, a very pessimistic note in which to end it there, but there are practical solutions, and I really appreciate your common sense on this. That is one academic who I could listen to all day. Certainly isn't, I do a tiny bit of academia myself, and I can tell you there are some woke people who really don't offer solutions. You have not been woke, and you've offered proper solutions. You've diagnosed the problem brilliantly. So I just want to say thanks, and we'll talk again soon, I hope. Dr. Lisa McKenzie, academic and author there. We're going to speak to a businessman who has an interesting view on this. He's a football club owner as well. His name is Simon Lancaster. We'll speak to him in a second. We'll also speak to a young person who says actually the opportunities are there, you just need to seize them. This is someone who's gone back to university pretty recently. Very, very interesting take on all of this. I want to hear your take on it too. 0344 499 1000. Get your call in. We'll have a chat about it. Stay with us here on Talk.
is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Melanie, says Dr. Lisa McKenzie's honesty and fresh perspective is much appreciated. We're going to get more on that. We're going to speak to Simon Lancaster in just a second. Let me just read out a few more messages. The worst week of her life, talking about Nicola Sturgeon. Gareth has been in touch. Gareth Patterson on Twitter says, but she still manages to fit in speaking at a book festival. Ali says, you've been talking about the hot weather all day as if it's still hot. So are we in Staffordshire. So are we in Staffordshire the only people who experienced massive thunderstorms last night and had a cloudy, breezy day today without the high temperatures of earlier this week? Well, I don't know, because I'm not a meteorologist and I don't really follow the weather, if I'm brutally frank, mainly because I despise most weather forecasters, apart from the wonderful Joe Wheeler and John Hammond, of course. Les says, I believe national and international journalists owe it to the Scots to pursue Ms. Sturgeon around Europe and keep asking the difficult questions. We deserve the truth. Obviously the SNP members were rinsed, but well over 2 million in police costs were paid by the taxpayer. So is this in the public interest? The truth must be published. Carol Carol's been in touch talking about vacuum cleaners. She says, I know what Joe Wheeler means about a workout. I feel that when I've used my vacuum cleaner. Ray says the lovely Nicola Sturgeon was interviewed by the police for 10 hours. She answered no comment to every question she was asked. They may have done some sort of deal with Merle to keep his wife out of trouble. Well, there's no, I'm not casting no aspersions whatsoever on Nicola Sturgeon. She says she didn't know anything about it. The police didn't charge her, and maybe we just have to believe her. I don't know. Carol also says, you made me laugh when you said Scott Bessent had unconvincing teeth. He does have unconvincing teeth. This is the Treasury Secretary in the United States, who just, I don't think his teeth are in nature. I really don't. Anyway, we're talking about the lost generation and the fact that Alan Milburn, the former cabinet minister, has done this big report about NEET. Now, Simon Lancaster is with me now. He's the owner of Worcester City Football Club. He's the founder of SJL Insurance and creator of the SJL Foundation. His own story, which we're going to hear in a second, is an example of entrepreneurship, social mobility and grassroots sports impact. But Simon, I wonder if I could just ask you, first of all, thanks for joining us on the programme. It's really good to hear from you with all the range of experience you have. There's a lot of information in the public domain now about young people, about the fact that so many of them are not in employment, in education or training. Why do you think they're finding it harder to enter work from your perspective?
Well, yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me on. I think there's a multitude of reasons, really, and it's good to see this in the public debate today. I did read most of Alan Milburn's report. I think it was a pretty good report. I agreed with much of it, and it's just reinforced everything that we in the business community have known for a few years, really, and it is very difficult for those school leavers through to mid-20s to get onto the first rung of the ladder. And that first rung of the ladder, I don't know about you, but it was so important to me in terms of learning my skills, my trade.
Totally. I was very lucky with the first rung of the ladder I got on, and there's so many young people who may not quite know what they want to do, but just having a job is so much more important than having no job, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't criticise A-levels, university. My eldest son's gone down that route, but it wasn't for me. So I left school and got an apprentice in insurance brokers and worked my way through numerous insurance brokers before starting out on my own at 23. And those formative years where you learn your skills, learn your trade are vital. And I feel like there is a lost generation, to coin the phrase, that
why are they lost? What are the barriers to a 16, 17-year-old doing what you did?
I think I wouldn't blame them. I think they're just as keen as eager as I was. I'm 47 now, but I think they're just as keen and eager. I think businesses now, we've always tried to recruit young people. I think most businesses like to do that because A, we like to give back, and B, they do make good employees. But it is just becoming more challenging, and you know, the rises to minimum wage, the rises to national insurance, the increased employment rights. It just makes it more of a gamble to take on a young person when for the same money and risk you can recruit somebody with a few more years experience. So I think it's just challenging for business to recruit young people, and I'd like to see the government do a bit more to help them. They are doing a bit, to be fair, but I'd like to see them do a bit more to try and help businesses make it more appealing to give these youngsters the chance that they need and deserve.
What do you think the impact of rising youth inactivity will be for the economy more generally?
Well, it'll be massive because it will be obviously a drain on the welfare state, as we already know, that's already struggling, should we say, stretched. But also, you know, it's the future skills, isn't it? You know, the future business owners, the future entrepreneurs, the future employees, they're not going to have those entry-level skills that they've learnt and developed over years. So it'll be a massive, massive negative impact on the economy for years to come, I would say.
Simon, I wonder, when you are trying to give people young people opportunities, what's kind of going through your head versus what you want to do versus what you can do? You're in a you know, your hard work has, I'm not going to say you're lucky at all, your hard work has put you in the great position you're in today. There may be other people who simply do not want to give those opportunities. You talked about the risk element of it as well, and I wonder, will a report like this actually maybe put people off employing young people to some degree, perhaps?
It could do. I mean, there's lots putting us off already, but I'd like to think that businesses will just take the gamble. You know, we try to wherever possible. I was an apprentice, like I said earlier, and we try to recruit apprentices wherever we can, and that is it's good for the employee, but it's good for the employer as well. So I would encourage employers to look at the apprentice model and also think outside the box. We set up our own academy whereby we take people out of non-insurance backgrounds, retail, hospitality, and we put them through an intense training course to train them up the skills in insurance to bring them up to speed. So we have our own academy that we try and bring 8 to 10 youngsters through at a time to fast track them in. So just trying to think out the box and give the youth a chance really is what I would hope businesses can do.
Well, you're doing good stuff, and thank you for speaking to us. That's Simon Lancaster there. He's a businessman, football club owner. Really appreciate you joining us on the programme this evening. Fran's been in touch from West Sussex. He says, my 17-year-old stepdaughter now has 2 jobs and is going to college. What frustrated us is that before she was 16 and finished her exams, she wasn't allowed to work for more than 4 hours. How many people have 4-hour shifts peeling potatoes at your local pub or a shop or anything you can walk to anymore? You're under 16, you only want someone for 4 hours, says Fran in West Sussex. I mean, that is a very, very good point. And certainly when I was my first time earning money, I think I was washing cars and delivering newspapers when I was 12 or 13, and certainly that was more than 4 hours a week. I think it was 6 hours a week. Actually, I did it after school. I want to talk to a young person whose name is Islam Hussein. He's 24 years old. He's from Keighley in Bradford. He recently left university. Islam, thank you for joining me this evening. I just wonder what you make of all this. Is there a lost generation? Are there people your age and younger who simply can't get a job? Are there people who are on the scrap heap despite the fact that you're just at the start of your working life?
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons why young people are struggling in today's society is because we kind of have a broken, I'd say, a financial but also education system. In terms of, I've been uni myself. I studied for 4 years. I came out with a degree in microbiology, but I was applying to hundreds of jobs. I didn't get any. And
what was that like? Just tell me about that. Yeah, a degree in microbiology. I mean, I don't really know what that is, but it sounds as if you're probably quite an intelligent person. And you were applying for hundreds of jobs? What sort of things were you applying for? Were you applying for microbiologist jobs or other things?
So exactly that. So entry-level jobs really in NHS and just along them lines as well. And it was very, very difficult because I think mainly there's a lot of competition going on. And, it's very hard for, I'd say, the young person to go get a job, because it's not just me, my friends as well. They weren't able to get jobs, and I'm talking, 6 months at a time. They're like, look, listen, Islam, we've been applying for a lot of jobs now, on LinkedIn, Indeed, and I don't think times have changed now. I think young people nowadays are more focused on wanting to be, I'd say, a lot of them are kind of lazy. I'd say. I think a lot of them are lazy because we're going through a moment in time that there's hidden, like you mentioned before, like hidden disabilities. Some people are just using that for their advantage.
Do you see people? Do you know people who've done that? Who are just saying, give me, without, I don't want the person's name, number, and rank and serial number or where they live, but just get in general terms, tell me how people your age actually view the system.
So the way they view the system is to kind of rinse for the system. So obviously they claim for depression, mental health, things like that, and that's a hidden disability. You can't see that. So you can't you go to either, for example, you go to job centre, you can't deny the fact that that person doesn't have it because he might have it. You just don't know. So it's a hidden disability, and I'd say I've seen it happen to a lot of young people. And for myself, like, I went into business straight after because I was like, look, this is not going to work. I have to do something. I have to provide for the family.
Why do you feel that way? I mean, you've set up a successful business. We'll hear a little bit more about it in a second, actually. But you've set that up from scratch by yourself. But why do you feel that? What's different about your mentality and your friends or people who are saying, actually, I'll just say I have depression and get money? What's in your mind, and what have you been taught, or why is your attitude different, do you think?
I think my attitude is different because I think a lot of the thing that goes on, it's about money, right? Financial. That's why people work, for the financial gain, right? And I always say to people, broke isn't the condition of the mind. Is a condition of the mind, not the pocket. So you've got to have a kind of like an abundance mindset. For example, right? You've got to go out there thinking that, if I fail at one thing, you can always try again, right? We always have the opportunity to try again. And I think what's happening now is we're seeing young people fail at one thing and then stop completely.
Yeah. No, so they have one type of failure and they stop completely. How much is, I mean, you're 24 and lockdown was about 5 years ago. Is that legacy still there, do you think? Can we blame lockdown and socialisation and not doing exams and all those kind of issues for this, or is that just another excuse?
I think that's just another excuse. We're seeing so many excuses kind of spawn out of nowhere, and I believe that, look, we're put here to work our hardest, right? We're not here to put our excuses. To me, excuses don't work, right? Like, I've seen it. My dad, he was a labourer, right? He used to go out to work 6 in the morning. I used to see that, and I've kind of adopted them behaviours, right? And I can see young people nowadays, they're not adopting the behaviours of waking up early. They want to wake up late. They want to chill. And tons of my friends, right, I've seen they're not really doing well because of that situation, and they don't want to push themselves. And pushing yourself is one of the things that could actually take you out of the comfort zone. You've got to be uncomfortable. You've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's how you get to the next level, I'd say. And there's so many opportunities out there, and I know AI is one of the biggest opportunities that we're living in today's space.
Because so many people are scared of it. Actually, this is maybe a good time for you to tell us about how you make money, about your business.
Yeah, so I've got a network and a learning platform, right? And basically what we do is we connect with high net worth individuals or business owners, entrepreneurs, and we bring them together. So for a person that is looking to go down the entrepreneurship route, we provide kind of the network for that. And that's something that I'm not seeing.
Are you talking about mentoring? Are you talking about skills to become an entrepreneur?
Yes, absolutely. Like skills, you've got mentors in there. We have people who have, multi-million-pound businesses that are, and you would think that, oh wow, I wouldn't even expect that business to do well. And it's like cleaning companies, generating millions a year and things like that. Like, it's the simple things, it's the boring things, right? That are seen as too boring. And I think nowadays, right, we're seeing a lot of young people, they're seeing social media, and social media is one of the things that are kind of ruining their brain, because I think it's the fact that they're seeing as such a flashy lifestyle, but they don't see what's behind the flashy lifestyle, the amount of hours that need to be put in to get to there.
I mean, it's really interesting you mentioned that, actually, because Gemma Collins, I'm sure you're aware of Gemma Collins from The Only Way is Essex and all those other programmes that she's done, was in with the Education Secretary last week, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. And listen, good for Gemma Collins, fair dues to her for her millions, that's fine. But I wonder if someone like that, an influencer, a social media influencer, a celebrity, is the right person to actually say, you've actually got to be a grafter to earn money here.
No, I think it's about being smart, really. I think the hard work has gone up. It's down now. Like, my granddad, he was working in the mills, factories. I think the hard work is finished now. It's all
So it's about working smartly, you think?
Exactly. And we've got things like AI, right? We've seen younger people start businesses, agencies, social media marketing, just using AI, and it's not difficult to do. It's just about putting the time in. And like I said, not being lazy. You've got to put the time in. And with time, money's just a byproduct of the effort that you put in.
What do people who don't put the effort you've put in think of what you've done? Because you're talking about this, you're kind of evangelizing about this, this good thing that you have done, and well done to you for doing so. Do they see you as a role model? Do they see you as someone they can copy and say, actually, do the work this guy has done and maybe you can make some money too?
Yes, absolutely. I've been in this space for a good 6 years. I started my company about 2 years ago. So
even when you were training to be a microbiologist, you were doing this as on the side?
Absolutely, yeah. I was doing this on the side. I was just trying to build something up, build a personal brand. And I think we're seeing a lot of influencers, or should I say content creators. People don't even want to work anymore. They would rather be content creators rather than work, because people don't realize even being a content creator is it's a hard job. It's something that I do as well, and it's not as easy as what other people think. You've got to come with the ideas, you've got to do things, you've got to record, you've got to keep viewers entertained.
Listen, it's really, really interesting talking to you, and I think I would hope to speak to you in the future, actually, about maybe a few other things as well, because you're clearly a young man with his head screwed on, who works hard and knows how to do well and make money, and I appreciate you speaking to me this evening about you and also about your contemporaries as well. Really interesting to talk to the 24-year-old Islam Hussein there. He's from Keighley in Bradford. He recently left university, set up his own networking and learning platform. Members connect with entrepreneurs, traders and business owners. Really interesting to talk to him. I wonder what you think of what he said there. Dave in New Zealand says, if you deprive a country of a generation of talent, you have to go abroad for it, i.e. immigration. Remember, the most overrepresented group is white males, which perhaps makes me racist for saying it. It certainly does not. Dave, loads more to discuss in all of this. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening. evening. Thank you so much for your company. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. We've been talking about NEETs there. Alan Milburn's report into people not in education, employment or training. We'll talk more about that. Lots of people getting in touch, and we'll see a little bit about what Alan Milburn has been saying there. There's some breaking news as well. An Austrian man has been jailed for 15 years over a plot to attack a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna in 2024. We'll speak about all the politics of the day, what's going on in Scotland as well with Peter Murrell and Nicola Sturgeon. Kevin Schofield will join us in just a second. Lots of people getting in touch about what young people do and people playing the system. Lots to discuss on all of that too. Plus we'll get a check-in on what's happening in the Middle East, which is plenty. Lots to discuss about Israel and Lebanon too. Give me your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a WhatsApp voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock here on the Evening Exchange. Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch, particularly on NEETs. Elle says the best thing to motivate young people to work are good role models. And it's not just about money, desire and passion counts a lot. I think we saw that actually from the young man we were speaking to a little bit earlier on. Debbie says Islam is inspiring. He doesn't sap anything out of it doesn't sap anything out of the system. I have a cousin 6 months old. I've a cousin 6 months older than me who has a bad back, and one 4 years younger, both brothers. They play the system. The younger can't work as he has anxiety and depression. He has a mobility car, benefits, etc., but also runs an online business. Lazy gets the pair of them. They discussed me in terms of how they play the system. I myself have post-traumatic stress disorder from being a veteran, yet I work every day. I have 2 businesses. The system must change, says Debbie, and I absolutely agree with that. Jason in the Lake District says our 2 sons are testimony that hard work pays. They both left school with just 1 GCSE, much to utter frustration. Parents' evening was not enjoyable, says Jason. One is 31, the other 24. They've worked for us since they could walk in any way, and we paid them for their work to show them how work pays. We live in one of the most expensive places in the country. Both are on the housing ladder because they have done 2 or 3 jobs a week and saved. They've both got a trade. They never look back. One has just made us grandparents for the first time. He's up at 5 a.m, but back at home at 2:45 and smashing it. The oldest is a motor mechanic and can work 7 days a week, 24/7, because all of the locals need him. Proof that if you work hard, you will get the rewards, says Jason. And it just makes me think of so many of our viewers and listeners who are the strivers, who are people who work hard, who pay their taxes, who do the right thing. And with this NEETs problem, it's clearly a very, very big issue. Alan Milburn talking about it today. And he said that there really isn't a plan to deal with it. Let's hear a little bit about what the former Cabinet Minister has said.
And I'm sad to say that for far too long in our country, the NEET crisis has been swept under the carpet. Not any longer. This review exists because today Britain faces a genuine generational fault line. We do not just have a chronic problem. It is getting worse, not getting better, and we have neither a system or a plan to deal with it. A decade or more ago, the problem was temporary youth unemployment, and youth unemployment today is still, of course, far too high. But now it is something deeper and far more corrosive. It is youth detachment from the labour market.
And the long-term implications of all of this are very stark too. This is what Alan Milburn said about that.
Of those who first claimed a health and disability benefit aged 16 to 24, almost half are not in work or education 15 years later. 15 years.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. We're going to speak now to Kevin Schofield. He is the political editor of HuffPost. This is the big dominant political story today. There are a few other things to talk about as well too. Of course, we'll talk more about Nicola Sturgeon and about Starmer and various other aspects of what's going on. But Kevin, this is really stark stuff. And it's clear from Alan Milburn that this isn't one government, this isn't the decision of one Prime Minister or one Minister or one policy. It's so many things together, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been writing about this issue for a very long time, Peter. You're right, it's not just happened in the last couple of years of a Labour government. This is an endemic problem which has been going on for many years indeed. And I think the stark starkest, most worrying aspect of what Alan Milburn was saying there is that there's not a system or a plan to deal with it. So you're really starting from square one right now. Now, I guess the good news is that there is a working pension secretary now, Pat McFadden, who is aware of the issue. The government commissioned this report from Alan Milburn, but it really needs to be acted upon now. You know, that there can be no more kicking it into the long grass. There needs to be a firm plan of action from the government to try and turn this around, because, you know, we're already at crisis point, and unless something is done immediately, not even, you know, next month, right away, then this is only going to get worse. And it's not just a problem for that generation, this is a problem for the whole of society, because if we've got a lost generation, then it's bad for all of us.
You're absolutely right, Kevin. I mean, you say you've been writing about this for some time. Certainly the phrase "neat" has been around for a long time. Was there much that shocked you in this? Is there a lot that's really new in it necessarily, or is this just a sort of synthesis of what's out there already?
Yeah, I think it's just a re-emphasising of the problem. I mean, you heard Alan Milburn there talking about, you know, young people who have been out of work for quite some time, and there's no prospect of them finding work, and even no inclination of them wanting to get a job. They've just completely shut off from the world of work. It's not even as if they are looking for jobs and can't get them. It's almost like they don't even want to look for work. They've just completely lost that work ethic, and without that, then you really are on a hiding to nothing. So the government has really got its work cut out. It's very clearly a very difficult nut to crack. If it was an easy problem to solve, then previous governments would have done it a long time ago. But it falls on this particular government right now to really get to grips with it, because if they don't, then we are in real crisis territory.
It's interesting that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has asked for quite a number of reports into welfare. There's a couple. Stephen Timms is doing a report. I think there are 2 reports into welfare. There's this one as well. What tends to happen, as you know far better than I do, Kevin, is that sometimes these things just sort of sit on a shelf. I mean, how has the government responded to this? And do you think they get the problem, and do they have a plan?
Well, I certainly think that Pat McFadden, the working pension secretary, I think he definitely gets it. You know, he really realises that this is an issue, but it's not just one Whitehall department. I think it's a government-wide effort is required to try and tackle it and plot a way forward. I mean, you heard Alan Milburn there say very boldly, I thought, you know, there is no plan right now. So, you know, this is the government's problem, you know, and the reason it's such a big issue is because if these young people are not coming through, we have an ageing population, we are relying on young people coming into the workplace, paying taxes to help fund the pensions of our elderly people in this country. And, you know, if that doesn't happen, then, you know, we're already financially in a very, very dark place as a country. Then it will only get worse. So it really is mission critical, I think, that the government, you know, cracks this problem and finds a way to get these young people back into work, not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the entire country and the entire economy.
I wonder if you could perhaps react to this bit of breaking news. I've just been told about prostate cancer screening is apparently to be rationed. Just talking about problems we have in our society. David Cameron, Lord Cameron, the former Prime Minister, he has attacked plans to deny checks to the vast majority of British men. Tests will now be tightly rationed, despite lagging behind much of Europe in regard to survival rates for prostate cancer, which of course is one of those cancers, if you get it in the early stages, you really can deal with it as a very survivable cancer. Charities tonight accusing health officials of condemning thousands to preventable deaths. Lord Cameron himself calling it a real step backwards. David Cameron, he was of course Foreign Secretary as well as Prime Minister. He says we are letting down too many men, their families and loved ones, if we don't push for a wider screening programme. What do you make of that? This is something which David Cameron really cares about. We know Rishi Sunak has done some campaigning on prostate cancer as well, and again showing the state of the National Health Service, perhaps, if this is to be rationed. And the screening programme, David Cameron says it should include all high-risk groups.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really startling story when I saw it earlier on. I mean, up until now, we've been told that men of a certain age, and I am in that age bracket now, in my 50s. You know, we all
surely not, Kevin.
I know it's hard to believe. but it's true, that you have to be screened on a regular basis to check for the signs of prostate cancer. But and this advice now completely flies in the face of it. There's a suggestion that it may actually do more harm than good, which it just seems really counterintuitive. And I'm not surprised that David Cameron has come out tonight and said that this would be a retrograde step, because, you know, without mass screening, then quite clearly, I think it's self-evident. You don't have to be a medical expert to realise that lots of people who are not maybe symptomatic will unfortunately not have their prostate cancer diagnosed at an early stage, and it could be too late by the time the symptoms present themselves and they go to get treatment. So yeah, this is a really, I think, quite a worrying recommendation, and it will be fascinating to see how the government responds to it.
You're absolutely right. I wonder if we could talk about, if we could go north to your original part of the world, to Scotland, because there have been greater revelations now, including a plea deal that kept a number of these things off the rap sheet for Peter Murrell, Nicola Sturgeon's husband, now estranged husband. I mean, deeply weird. Although we've been talking about for a number of days in terms of the purchases. I've been particularly interested, and indeed a viewer has sent me lots of information about a motion sensor makeup mirror worth £480. No word on whether that was for the camper van because of the motion in there. Also night tracksuits totaling £175, a camera £3,775, and a book by our colleague, and she's certainly a friend of mine, I expect she is of you as well, Isabel Hardman, the great Isabel Hardman, Why We Get the Wrong Politicians. I mean, you could not make this stuff up, Kevin.
No, you certainly couldn't make up that last one, you're right. Yes. I mean, it is quite astonishing. And now we've had John Swinney very strongly pushing back against this idea of a parliamentary inquiry in Scotland. He says this is a criminal issue. The police have dealt with it. Peter Murrell has pled guilty and will go to jail. Therefore, we can all just move along. I really think that's wishful thinking from John Swinney. I think people realise that there are still an awful lot of questions to answer. And it will be interesting if the Scottish Parliament chooses not to hold an inquiry, whether the UK Parliament, whether the Scottish Affairs Select Committee, for instance, may decide to hold its own inquiry. That could potentially be very embarrassing for the SNP if, for instance, they were to call John Swinney or Nicola Sturgeon herself to come and give evidence. So
Swinney has definitely been quite tetchy about this, hasn't he?
He has been very tetchy. We know he's a close ally of Nicola Sturgeon. He was her deputy for many, many years while this was all going on. So he's been very thin-skinned, I think quite tone-deaf, actually, in his response to it. It's almost as if to say, it's been dealt with. There's no more questions to answer. Let's all just forget about it and move on. Well, unfortunately for him, I don't think, certainly not the opposition parties in Scotland, or the Scottish public, really, by and large, think it can't be swept under the carpet. There's certainly more questions to answer. More questions than you could shake a £2,500 salt cellar at, I would argue. Kevin, thank you as always. Kevin Schofield, political editor at HuffPost UK. This person says, I would like to remain anonymous, but I work with young people who are in care. Many are not in education, employment or training, and they either get caught up in county lines or life is easier on PIP for their ADHD, this person says. I mean, it's just a grim picture out there, really. Phil says, I would make any person under 30 who is claiming disability to have a face-to-face consultation with medical professionals, as I suspect quite a few of them are swinging the lead and unfortunately tainting genuine claimants. I think there is, well, I know from chatting to people who are in this position, there is a real frustration from people, some of them are my viewers and listeners, who are genuinely disabled, who are getting benefits, and as I say, absolutely no problem with that. That is, I'm a taxpayer, that's cool, that's fine. You are genuinely disabled, you get benefits, that's okay. Your life is more difficult, and certainly you can't work. I get that, that's fine. No issue with that. They are feeling tainted by this. Even when I say things like, the welfare bill is 5 times what we spend on defence, which is true. I get pensioners, for example, saying, well, hold on, it's not a benefit to have a pension. We've paid in. A lot of people say as well, if I'm genuinely disabled, what do you expect me to do? What do you expect me to work? I'm not getting at those people at all. No problem with that whatsoever. But there are so many people who I think they're maybe not lying. They're maybe not saying, I have depression or I have ADHD, but does that honestly mean you can't work?
Does that honestly mean you can't do some work? I mean, I've talked about this on a number of occasions, but I have depression and anxiety. Going to work helps me. I take pills for that every single day. I was diagnosed by a clinical psychologist, a very senior psychiatrist in Northern Ireland about 15 years ago. And, you know, I take pills for that every single day. It helps me. It helps me because I'm around people. I have a great team behind the scenes and they give me energy. They give me ideas. We talk about things and that makes my day better. That makes me energized and means I can work and I'm not sitting at home feeling sorry for myself, which occasionally does happen, but thankfully not going to be going down that road. And actually, a young man has contacted me to say that he's fairly certain he has ADHD, but he refuses to actually go and find out because he doesn't want to be lumped in with people who are swinging the lead. I mean, I think a diagnosis is not a bad idea, but at the same time, there are, I just think there's got to be a better way through this. What is that better way? What is the solution? Honestly, I don't know. Okay, I don't know how I would solve this. I have some ideas, I have some thoughts, but I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. I'll take as many calls as I can between now and 10 o'clock. If you have an idea how we deal with so many young people, and older people too, who are not in work, who aren't working but can work, you let me know your thoughts, whatever they are, however radical they are, however unpopular they might be. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason says, when I turned 53 years ago, I decided to go to the GP to ask about prostate cancer screening, and he talked me out of it, saying that there were too many false positives coming that led to unnecessary complications, and that if I didn't have any symptoms, he would recommend not taking the test. I have a couple of friends who had no symptoms but were stage 2 or 3 cancer when screened. I feel like I have a grey cloud hanging over me. Another person says, I blame the precarious gig economy and the widespread rollout of bogus zero-hour contracts for why so many young people feel disconnected and hopeless. If employers treat workers as disposable, why should the young feel loyalty or hope? A bleak message, but a very sensible one. Quite a number of people getting in touch on this NEETs issue. We'll take a couple of voice notes on that in a second, but Ryan's been in touch on Sturgeon and Mandelson. Let's hear his voice note.
Hello, Peter. Great show as always. I'm just sitting thinking here about the Mandelson and the Sturgeon scandal. I seem to think that I used to see this when I worked in a clothes shop in Belfast, actually, that a lot of people used to come and they would buy something of high value, i.e. £2,600 salt and pepper shakers, all the vacuum cleaners, all the stuff that they were getting, get the receipt and then take it back and refund it, and then that way they're washing the money. And it's actually the money they're keeping. They're not really keeping the goods. It'd be interesting to see if they raided the home, if all those goods are actually still sitting in their house. Great show as always. Take care. Cheers.
Really interesting one there, Ryan. I hadn't actually considered that. And of course, hopefully it'll all come out in the wash. And the thing is, there's so much we don't know about this. If you had all that stuff, where did all the stuff go? I mean, is their house just full of this stuff? I know they took away quite a lot of those different, you know, the tent that they put around the Sturgeon's house, the Sturgeon Murrell house, which was like a forensic tent, is because there were so many of those high value items and they didn't want the waiting journalists to see them because there were evidence. So I wonder if some of them were taken away. I mean, it's very, very interesting that you mentioned that as well, about people bringing them back and kind of almost laundering the money. I don't know if Peter Murrell did that or not. I'm sure he would deny that if that was put to him, but very, very interesting, Ryan. Very interesting message there. On Neats, couple of good ones from Kelvin and Mark. Kelvin first.
Good evening, Peter. The problem is today we live in different times. That's just why all the young ones can't get jobs. And there's no real incentive for them to get jobs. And there's nobody there pushing them to get jobs either. I grew up, I was born in 1961. I grew up through the 70s and 80s. And it was totally different then. You could walk out of one job and into another. You can't do that today because this government has closed that many businesses down and put that many people out of work. And these stupid laws that they brought in that you've all talked about stop employers from employing people. That is the problem today. And on top of that, you've got a lot of people now who are seeing it's better to be on benefits than working. And they don't want to go to work anymore. And the benefit system is just funding them. It's crazy. But until you get jobs going and businesses going, you're not going to get them into work, are you? Bye.
Calvin, really interesting to hear from you on that, and some really good thoughts. A lot of common sense there. Mark's been in touch on Neats as well.
Hi, Mark in Lincolnshire. My message for younger people, yeah, grasp it with both hands. You know, it's up to you to make some of yourself. I mean, my personal situation when I started comprehensive school, pretty much started the paper round just before then. Did that my whole secondary education. Ended up as a double round, used to do midweek papers for the local advertiser, you know, anything to make a few quid, really. Did all sorts of stuff straight into ITS after school for a couple of years, doing care work, did care work for a little while, went to university finally in my early 20s, did some more care work because I had those skills, so I did agency work. Yeah, you got to grab it with both hands at the end of the day. You know, you can't just expect it to fall in your lap. Truthfully, you know, that's the reality. So you've got to go out there and do it, I guess.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Phil says, I knew someone who claimed benefits and extra benefits for her son with ADHD. The taxpayers paid for his medication, which when taken made everyday life normal. So why did she get extra benefits? When a school said he was fine after the Department for Benefits contacted them, which resulted in her possibly losing the payments, she told the school to change their report or she would withdraw her permission for the school to administer his medication. Absolutely disgusting. Dan and Kent says, real life is not 50-50 socialism, capitalism. Centre politics only works being off-centre, but this has tied governments and not for many years now, Cardi P. In a world of publicity, career politicians are rife. We may feel fractured politics. You know, some really interesting thoughts there from Dan, so thank you. We may feel fractured politics, right dictator to keep power. Well, let's I don't want anybody to live in a dictatorship. Dan, certainly I want democracy, free speech and all the rest of it. This person says, don't mention their name, and I will respect that. I am a DWP work coach with serious long-term mental health conditions. I have to spend every day listening to people reciting lines from TikTok that demonstrate they're lying about health. However, if I was to counter how I know they're lying or cite my own health, I would be sacked. What we need is a clear out of those bone-idle career civil servants who push leftist ideology instead of enforcing the idea that universal credit is not a lifestyle choice. I mean, that is absolutely damning from someone whose job it is Department of Work and Pensions work coach. Just read that again. What we need is a clear out of those bone-idle career civil servants who push leftist ideology instead of enforcing the idea that universal credit is not a lifestyle choice. That is someone who listens to people saying, DWP work coach, someone who says they listen to people reciting lines from TikTok to demonstrate about their health and talk about their health, and they've been coached in terms of what they are to say. Thank you to that person, who I will, of course, respect their anonymity. Laura Jane's in Hampshire. Laura Jane, how do we deal with this?
Old-fashioned tactics. Why don't we look at the idea of national service in a different way, where we bring back sort of a voluntary service and give people the chance to get skills, and also give them their self-confidence back.
I think you're right. I think so much of it is about confidence. And that young man, I don't know if you heard, the guy was on about half an hour ago. He's a clearly confident young man, and he's thinking, hold on a second here, there's money to be made here. You know, let's do this stuff. Let's work smartly, as he says, and earn some money.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different things, you know, whether it's helping elderly people in their gardens and therefore learning a few skills of gardening, the dreaded potholes, visiting people in their own homes. I know there's a lot of health and safety rules around all these things, but if you're involved in a national service type project and you get a basic wage, you could solve so many problems, and companionship for elderly people and young people listening to elderly people and learning from them. It just strikes me we're missing a trick.
I think you're absolutely right. And they do something similar in Germany. You can join the German army for a year or a couple of years. I'm not quite sure how long German national service is, but a load of people don't do that because they don't want to, or military life's not for them. I'll be brutally honest. If someone said to me, you got to join the military for a year, it wouldn't be great either for me or for the military. But if someone said, look, you can do a bit of volunteering, or alternatively we'll give you minimum wage or whatever it is, and you can help with these things that need to be sorted out. There are loads of parts of the country that need litter picked up, for example. There are loads of older people who would love a visitor or someone to help them with their shopping. Exactly the kind of things that you say there, Laura Jane. Filling in potholes, for example. Okay, yeah, there's going to be some skill involved with that. I couldn't do it. You need to be a bit practical. But people could be trained to help with it. And there's so many problems that this country are crying out to be fixed. And there are a load of people sitting there who could work and don't. And it's far better. Rishi Sunak talks about the dignity of work, Laura Jane, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about voluntary service. You know, you used to do voluntary service overseas.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
could do that too.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why we can't look at national service in a different way. It's a win-win situation for the young person and for the service, the skill that they learn, or simply, as you say, some sort of voluntary, you know, doing shopping for elderly people. It's just so simple.
And it might help build a bit of community as well, Laura Jane.
Yes, exactly. And I just don't understand why we have to make things complicated. I really don't.
Really good, strong view there, and a simple and straightforward solution there. As Laura Jane says, why does everything have to be so complicated? It's a very good point. Let's hear a voice note from Michelle. Michelle has been in touch on NEETs, and reminder, you can send your voice notes in either tonight or indeed any night, 0344 499 1000. You do it through WhatsApp. Let's hear what Michelle has to say.
Hi Peter, it's Michelle from Plymouth. I myself can't hold down a paid job because of my mental health, autism, etc. But I do a volunteer job, which I absolutely love and get so much from it. And everybody can do some sort of volunteer job because it's voluntary. You go when you can, and when you can't, you don't go. And that's just my way of giving back to society and paying for my benefits almost. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Michelle, that's great. That is exactly the right attitude. That is really good. I wish you all the very best with your mental health as well. It can be a really, really big issue, and clearly it is for you. If you can't work, you want to do something, and you do it when you can. And I really think the work system needs to be flexible for people like Michelle, actually, to say maybe there's something paid you can do. Maybe there's something, if there's a few hours a day you can do, or if you're well enough to do it, you can do it. The lack of flexibility is something I really, really worry about. And I think Michelle, who's doing a good thing there by volunteering, and good for you for doing that, Michelle. I think she's identified a kind of wider issue there as well. On Nicola Sturgeon, Herbie and Harrow has been in touch. You're very welcome to the programme, Herbie. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter. Well, it stands to reason. When she resigned, when she did, it was too early for her to resign. You don't give up the job that easy. And I said to my ex, I said, something's not quite right here. It can't be. You don't just quit a job like that overnight, and unless there's something aloof, and it's exactly what's happened. We found out why.
Well, listen,
the only reason.
She denies all wrongdoing. She wasn't charged by the police and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but Peter, you do not give up a position like that if there's for no reason. As far as I was concerned, there was no reason. The reason was she was aware.
Well, it was the Isla Bryson row as well, wasn't there, about the rapist and everything? There were a number of reasons why she stepped down, but I think what I think is perhaps fair to say, Herbie, is many people, including you, including me, are feeling like completely astonished that all this expensive tat could be in your house, and you would just not realise it.
She's got the Specsavers in, don't she, really? She can't be seeing what's in there. Oh, it's just beyond belief. Peter, why do we have to put up with all this rubbish?
I think it's a very good point, Herbie, and a load of people want politicians, quite simply, to be straight down the line, tell them the truth, not prevaricate. This doesn't do our trust in public institutions and politicians and our leaders any good, does it, Herbie?
Absolutely not, Peter. The thing is that we're supposed to be a great nation. How can you be a great nation when you've got a great load of robbers running a country, which appears to be what seems to be the case at the moment, Peter? Unbelievable. It's a shame. We're putting shame on our nation. It's disgraceful, I think.
Herbie, thanks for your thoughts there. Really good to talk to you as always. Carmen has been in touch and says parenting plays a key part in work ethic. A lot of these youngsters have grown up with parents with no interest in working, claiming all they can get. If my parents had been like that, no doubt I'd feel the same. My parents were grafters, no qualifications, but they worked and even became entrepreneurs. First company failed, well, they went again, set up another one. There are fewer role models now, and social media influencers are not actually influencing good behaviours. Another person says, stop the benefits of these shameless scroungers and they will soon find work. On that one I read out from the anonymous DWP work coach, Jason says, we all expected it, but it is still shocking. Totally agree with that. Robin says, it was interesting to hear of your personal experience of depression. I'm 69 years old and have had some OCD since my mid-teens. My OCD absolutely does have some benefits, like when I was studying accounting and also with photography, attention to detail. I also know now, since I retired, that from my mid-teens I've suffered from clinical depression. I worked all my days until 7 years ago when I retired. Absolutely, working is very good for you. It got me out of bed and into the land of the living, meeting, chatting, interacting with colleagues and friends and using my brain. Whilst working, I did worry about retirement and suspected that I may end up being alive but not fully living. Working is very good for you. Well, Robin, thank you for that, and I wish you a long and happy retirement, whatever you're up to, and certainly you're watching this programme, which is a good way to keep the grey cells moving. Ernie says, I'm 68, I still work in construction and dreading the day I have to give up work and live off benefits because of ill health. I love working, keeps me fit, I love the camaraderie, I love meeting new people, I earn enough to give my family and me a few treats. I feel so sorry for people who can't experience the joy of working because they're ill. I'm certainly not looking forward to retirement. Well, 68, I mean, you're going well at 68. I think the retirement age, what is it, 67 these days? So Ernie, you just keep working as long as you want to, and if it gives you happiness and healthiness and a bit of extra cash for those treats, well, fair enough, but I hope you know when to stop as well. Nothing wrong with retirement. I kind of love to retire. I look at the life that some retirees, you know, this may or may not be related to the fact I've just come back from Northern Ireland and visiting my parents, but I look at the life they have. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Joanna has been in touch from Birmingham and says, I just want to wish you a happy birthday, Peter. That's very kind, Joe. Thank you. I'm sorry, I had no idea it was your birthday, otherwise I'd have sent you a card. You absolutely do not need to send me a card. Some people have done that, and that's really, really kind. But I just want to thank everybody who's done that and the lovely presents I've received, including from Carolyn, who sent me these lovely presents as well. One is a Bookshop Cats, a book about cats, which is very nice, and some lovely note paper as well, which I will treasure and use to write down all the different things that we're going to do on the programme. So Joe, thank you for that. Carolyn, thank you as well. There are many other people who have sent various things. I know Carol sent me something. I know Elisa gave me a lovely present as well. and Angie has done so as well. So thank you to everybody who's done that. And if I've missed anybody out, I do apologise. Jane sent me a card as well, so I appreciate that. Coincidentally, it's Joe's birthday on Sunday. Joe will be 35. I feel old. Believe me, I'll be 42 on Monday, and 35 is not old. You're just getting started, Joe from Birmingham. Lots more to discuss, including what on earth is happening in the Middle East and where we are with Iran and Israel. Simon Diggins will be with us next to demystify the whole thing and make it very, very clear. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who has been in touch. There's quite a lot coming out of Washington. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary with the unconvincing teeth, has been talking about claim and counter-claim over whether Iranian and US negotiators have finalised a deal for their leaders to sign. Western reports have suggested the agreement was on Donald Trump's desk and would reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but Iranian media appears to be saying otherwise, and this comes in Lebanon. Israel has been striking an ancient castle in southern Lebanon, Netanyahu intensifying the bombardment there. Let's get the latest analysis from Colonel Simon Diggins, who is obviously a former senior military officer and military analyst. Simon, where are we at the moment, do you think, particularly with the US and Iran? Because we're just hearing very, very different things.
No, we are, Peter. Good evening to you. Happy birthday, if I may pass on that to you
Thanks, Simon.
As well. There's definitely a desire to have some kind of ceasefire extension and use that as an opportunity then to deal with some of the more substantive issues. But I think the challenge we've had continues is that what are the conditions for that ceasefire? What concessions have got to be made by the Americans and by the Iranians? And were those acceptable to the two principals involved? And that's where we are. So we've had, as you so rightly point out, these slightly sort of contradictory reports coming through that a ceasefire is almost imminent. There's a framework in place that came from the Qataris earlier on today. The Pakistani foreign minister is saying there's going to be a meeting tomorrow to settle the details. And yet we've just had the Iranian news agency Tasnim, I was just checking the sources, saying that there's no deal on the table at all. And of course, overnight we've then got potentially President Trump with Truth Social, blowing the whole thing out of the water, or whatever. So we know kind of what the deal is going to be. It's going to be an extension of the ceasefire, and then substantive issues to be resolved. And during that period of the ceasefire, the Strait of Hormuz will be opened. But the actual decision about whether it's going to happen or not, I think is still very much in the hands of the leadership, President Trump for America, and whatever collective leadership arrangement is ongoing in Iran. And we talked about that issue the other night. What does that actually mean? Who is actually speaking for Iran? Who can make the decisions in Iran? Not clear.
And speaking of Tasnim, the news agency reports citing a military source saying Iran intercepted a US drone a few minutes ago that was made, and this missile attack apparently being launched despite the ceasefire. I mean, how much of a ceasefire actually is it, do you think, between Iran and the other countries attacking it?
I think very, very tentative. I mean, there's also reports of missiles being fired at US commercial vessels, presumably in and around the Gulf of Oman. So that's the area to the east of Masanda Peninsula, to the east of the Strait of Hormuz itself. Up until now, all those incidents have been dealt with. Something's happened. Normally the Iranians start something, the Americans respond, and then it's deemed to be closed, with the ceasefire continuing to hold in place. But we saw with the incident earlier on today, where the Americans in response attacked Bandar Abbas, which is a port in Iran, and the Iranians did not go back against the closest US assets. They attacked a US base in Kuwait, bringing in the Kuwaitis itself. And I think that's a challenge, is that every time we have one of these significant breaches of ceasefire, I mean, it has a potential, because the way in which the Iranians reacted, of actually making it a much wider and more complex operation to try and bring to an end.
Turning to Lebanon and Israel striking an ancient castle in southern Lebanon, this intensification of the bombardment. This is Beaufort Castle, hit by Israeli strikes on Tuesday. 31 people killed, another 40 wounded. That was the deadliest day since the ceasefire was supposed to take hold. Again, perhaps give us your assessment of this ceasefire and what's actually happening there with Israel-Lebanon.
Absolutely, and I think this is the other sort of key issue. I mean, the two big issues that are holding up this ceasefire in the long term. One is the issue of Iran and its nuclear weapons, but the second important issue is what will happen to Iran's proxies in the region, and particularly to Hezbollah. Hamas as a military force has been very largely written down, but Hezbollah is still a very potent military force in the Lebanon, not only in terms of their ability to respond and attack Israel, but also in terms of the hold they have over the Lebanese people itself. Now, again, the Lebanese government and the Israeli government are supposed to be meeting in the next couple of days, and that might well be the beginning of a solution, but it's going to take a huge amount of effort on behalf of the Lebanese government to assert control over their own territory, which means effectively disarming the Hezbollah. And Hezbollah are not going to give up their weapons easily. They're also not ineffective at the moment. They've also adopted the kind of first-person view drone war we've seen in places like Ukraine, and the Israelis are struggling to counter that. And as a result, they keep pushing further and further northwards into Lebanon itself. They're currently up to beyond the Litani line. That's a 10 to 12 kilometers north of Israel, and they're looking to move even further north. Some of the attacks are taking place. I'm talking about telling people to evacuate up to 25 kilometers north of the Israeli border in order to create a sort of security zone in which they can then protect their northern territories.
Just slightly off topic, Simon, but I wonder if I could ask your opinion on this. It's something that Laura Jane, one of our callers, was talking about a little bit earlier. I'm not sure whether you're waiting on the line when she said that, but she talked about national service, not necessarily the military aspect, but a kind of service for to help people and to help older people and to deal with the issues in our society. When it comes to national service in the military, as a military man, as a former colonel, do you think that's something that should be considered? The big political story today, I'm sure you've seen, about people not in education, employment and training. I just wonder what your thought was on that.
I think it should be part of the package. I mean, I have been listening to the conversations being run after the report by Alan Milburn. Obviously, it's of key importance to all of us, and making sure our young people for the future feel they have a stake in life and a stake in the country. And I think national service could be one of the answers to that. I'm slightly with you that it doesn't necessarily need to be military national service, though a military national service component should be available to people. And for a number of people, they will take it up. It would mean a change of thinking parts of the UK military. We've been used now since 1964 to being a all-volunteer army with all the kind of esprit de corps and everything goes there. I mean, clearly national service, and you've got people there. And we're not talking about conscription, though. I think that's different. But there's some form of national service which should be voluntary, which I think will make a difference and should be part of the package, in my view.
Simon, really interesting to talk to you on all of that, as always. Colonel Simon Dickens, the military analyst. Appreciate you joining us on the Evening Exchange. What do you think about what he said there? 0344 499 1000. Quite a number of people in touch on all sorts of issues. Leslie, very, very good message, which really made me think, actually, Leslie. COVID lockdown was bad for the young, but do you think we should stop using it as a reason for youngsters to avoid employment? Very, very interesting. I do think the legacy of those lockdowns is still not even known. I don't think we've even touched I don't think we even got off the ground when we're talking about this, about what those lockdowns did to our society. We know some of the detail. I don't think we know a lot of it, because that's going to take time to actually work out. But Leslie, it's a very good point. I don't know if it's an excuse necessarily, but certainly it's maybe just a reason. It's maybe just a factor if you're saying to people who are now 18 years old, well, when you were, 12, 13, actually developing your mind, your body, developing your intellect, developing and all the rest of it, we're just going to take you out of a situation where all your friends are and where your teachers are, and we're going to stick you on Zoom. If you, in fact, have the privilege of having a computer or a tablet or whatever, which a lot of families don't have, and didn't have, and people forget that. There are so many middle-class people who say, oh, we had to get an extra iPad. Well, that's fine if you can afford an iPad. There are a load of people who didn't even have a smartphone during COVID lockdowns, and their kids just didn't learn anything. Whole different issue. But Leslie, you've made me think on that, and if you have any thoughts on it that you want to add to Leslie's thoughts, please do give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Still time for a few calls before we speak to Ash about what's coming up on his programme with Andre after 10. Leslie also has another good point, yet another bit of common sense from Leslie, who says, why do 16-year-olds qualify for benefits if they live at home with parents? After all, they don't have bills to pay. Zarina says, all my nieces and nephews work. They were given two choices by their parents, further education or work. They were given a couple of days off after completing school, and then they had to take to the streets to look. As a family, the youngsters were supported by the family with CVs, general advice, as well as listening to the grapevine to find them a job. Some of my relatives have poor mental health, but none have deterred from working. It's a family affair to support our youngsters. Just the right attitude there, Serena, thank you. Ben in Surrey says, another great show as always. Thank you, Ben. I'm a head of year at a school where my year group are currently undertaking their GCSEs. We recently had visiting employers come in to run mock interviews and to review the students' CVs. The employers were genuinely impressed with how well the students communicated and how confidently they presented themselves. It's a shame that work experience opportunities in school are so limited nowadays, but one thing I make sure to teach them is resilience. I've also invited veterans in to speak to them, which has been incredibly valuable. Right. The next time someone slags off teachers and says they're all woke, liberal, left-leaning, tree-hugging people who don't care about young people and don't realise what work is, I am going to refer them to Ben from Surrey, who sounds like a flipping good teacher and reminds me of some of the people he taught me who were very, very good people. So well done to Ben for doing all of that. It's been a bit negative this evening. Obviously, there's a great programme, and I've really enjoyed all the different views that are coming in, but the subject matter is a bit negative. So I want to look forward to something positive, which is, of course, the FIFA World Cup 2026. It's almost here, and thanks to Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier, our friends at talkSPORT are giving you the chance to actually be there. Adidas is sending you and a friend to Dallas to see England versus Croatia live on the 17th of June with return flights, accommodation, spending money, tickets, and your very own Adidas official match ball. Be it England's first game in the FIFA World Cup on one of the world's best stadiums. Are you ready to get that winning feeling? Well, here's how to enter.
Get ready for that winning feeling. For your chance to win, head to talksportwin.com or text TALK to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 1st of June 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. See full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Full T's and C's at win.talk.tv.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Tommy is in Scotland somewhere and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Tommy, can you be a bit more specific about where you are in Scotland? I know you're in that beautiful, wonderful country, but whereabouts?
Hi, Peter. I spoke to you last week.
I remember, but I don't like saying Tommy in Scotland. It's like when people say, oh, you're from Northern Ireland. There are lots of towns and villages. Can you give us a sort of general area?
Well, my small town is called Whitburn.
Whitburn?
Yes.
Okay, and where is Whitburn? I'm unfamiliar with it, but where is it?
It lives on the main route, the M8, between Glasgow and Edinburgh. I'm basically right in the middle of those two places.
Okay, can we update that, Tommy? And which county is that
in? West Lothian.
West Lothian. Shall we say Tommy in West Lothian? Is that okay for your future appearances?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
yeah.
Can we update that, if we don't mind, on Tommy from West Lothian?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Tommy, what's on your mind this evening? I think youth unemployment is something you want to talk about.
Yes, it is, but can I slightly divert before I go to youth?
Can I make a guess? You want to talk about Nicola Sturgeon?
Oh, how did you know?
Call it my female intuition, or whatever the male equivalent of that is. Not sure there is a male equivalent.
I would love to meet Nicola Sturgeon's. God, the words are out of my head now. I'd like to meet the guy who tested Nicola Sturgeon's eyes.
Right, optician.
And oh, jeez, yeah, thank you. And possibly her ears.
Right.
I mean, who on earth does she think she's trying to fool with this nonsense?
I'm yet to find. I'd love to find someone. I mean, she obviously denies any wrongdoing. She now hasn't been charged. We've said all those things, but I'm not sure I've met or spoken to someone who believes her, Tommy.
Well, yes, you're in the same camp as me. That is just outrageous. I mean, Peter, many, many years ago, I used to give SNP my vote.
Right.
And not because I was like, oh, yes, Scotland.
Was it because you just wondered if they might give you a really expensive salt cellar?
Exactly. Now that's an absolute cracker, is it not?
Well, the one where he bought a book called Why We Get the Wrong Politicians. I mean, that to me is, I mean, that's, you can't, there's no satirist who can do better than that. Tommy, I want to get one more caller in before the end of the programme, so just make your point on youth unemployment, if you wouldn't mind.
Right, sorry, I'll move off this subject. When I was looking for work as I'm 55, Peter, so when I was looking for work as a sort of 15, 16-year-old, I had my paper round when I was 15, and after that, you basically chap doors.
Yep.
And there are still signs on local shops and businesses that are not necessarily tech savvy, but they're looking for staff.
Do you know what I think as well? There are so many people I've read about, Tommy, who just go there, who just talk to people. They're not an anonymous CV. They go to the front desk, they leave their CV in, and someone actually looks at it rather than getting like AI to scan through it or whatever.
Still a thing.
Sorry?
Yeah, the human contact is still a thing. It's excellent.
Totally.
And it's kind of been pushed to the side.
Yeah.
And so many of these young people could make inroads into work and could make inroads into getting that first wage packet and saying, wow, this is what this is about.
Well,
I don't know if you remember your first wage packet. For me, it was both delight and despair. Delight that I got the money, and despair thinking, how much tax have they taken off me? Tommy, great to talk to you. I've got to move on, but ring me again soon and we'll have another chat. Chris in Derbyshire, let's fit him in before the end of the programme. Chris, what would you like to talk about? I think it's the Nowak stabbing that is on your mind.
Yes, I believe that both the story of the Novak stabbing and also the story about youth unemployment really shows a country that does not have its priorities in order. It seems like the hard workers and the people who aspire are left unappreciated, while the crooks and criminals get away with literal murder. Okay, now the guy who was involved in the stabbing used religion as an excuse. Then he used the fact that he alleged that something was said that was
racial slur. That just wasn't true.
At the end of the day, you know, crooks and criminals will use any old excuse to get away with what they get away with. So I'm not surprised, but our justice system is a joke, and I can say that as a victim of crime.
I'm sorry to hear you're a victim of crime yourself, Chris. I just wonder as well, it's a question I haven't asked it in a while, but I still think it. What is the reward for doing the right thing? There's so many people who watch and listen to this programme who do the right thing every single day. They keep within the law. If they work, they pay taxes. They don't break the law, they do the right thing. And I wonder, Chris, what is the reward for doing it? Because I see a lot of rewards for a lot of people who don't play by the rules.
I mean, I'll give you a personal example, right? I've got 2 university degrees, a BA in media and an MA in PR. I wanted to work in broadcasting, and, you know, the people who on my estate who take drugs, who, you know, have some kind of addiction problem, it seems they